Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the VonDubCast. Today's guest is Kyle Cugnet-Huber. He's a buddy of mine that I met in my third year of university. He was a first year. He's an engineer, and he's currently working in Saudi Arabia in the oil and gas industry. We discussed that a bit, discuss how we got into that role, the interview process. It's quite unlike any interview process I had ever heard of before. Very in-depth with multiple rounds, and actually, he didn't even know he was going to be going to Saudi Arabia right off the hop. He knew that international travel could be a possibility, but as you'll hear, he kind of had a few other places in mind, and it ended up being Saudi Arabia. It's quite the tale, so I thought it was very exciting. We also talk about many other things, politics, the environment, social media, news media, many different things. It was very nice to be able to catch up with him. Like I said, he's moved away, so we haven't got to sit down and talk like this for a long time. And actually, even before he left, we actually hadn't been able to sit down like this. So we had a great time. Like always, any feedback you want to give, you can send it to VonDubCast@gmail.com. Would love to hear from you guys on what you'd like to hear, improvements that can be made, anything like that. Or if you want to finally send me some intro music so I don't have to sing like an idiot at the start of every one of these, that'd be great. Or any guest recommendations, that would also be greatly appreciated. Also, I'm finding the editing process quite the learning curve. So if you know anybody that's done something like this before, you think would be a benefit to me, that I could maybe pick somebody's brain on it, feel free to throw those names at me too. I'd really appreciate that, because I'm new to this, and any help is greatly appreciated. So yeah, sit back and enjoy this podcast with my friend Kyle. VonDubCast. All right, welcome, Kyle. So for those of you that don't know, me and Kyle met in university. He was in his first year when I was in my third, I think. And
Yeah, I think that's right.
yeah, went through his engineering degree, and now he has moved to Saudi Arabia, and he's working there currently. So just to start off, I kind of want to jump right into that and ask you kind of how that process happened, because that for me would be scary as shit to try and move around the world. Like, did they bring that up? Did you know right away that that was the place you were going, or did it come partway through the interview process, or how did that all kind of fold out?
Um, yeah, it was actually like quite a non-conventional kind of interview process, right? It was actually the reason why I kind of interviewed with the company beforehand was I was trying to get Shell to get their gears turning on an offer for me because they were kind of dragging their heels, and I figured,
Right.
if I had another offer to leverage, then then they maybe kind of get their ass in gear and get it out.
Yeah.
But then when I went to the interview and I learned about like, oh, they got chances at like international opportunities right off the bat, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Because with Shell, you kind of need to do like a couple years at least before they're looking at moving you around, unless it's like a
Right.
special circumstance. So, and just with the whole scene in Canada right now, like the oil and gas sector is definitely not what it was years ago, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, yeah, international sounds pretty cool if I could get that. So I went to the interview, and it was actually quite a process. It was like a 3 day interview. So you got there, you had to like present with like some people you had never met before on one of their
Right.
product lines. So they kind of divide out. They're basically like an oil service company. So they
Right.
don't own like the land and the mineral rights. They go and perform a service for the company. So
Mm-hmm.
their different product lines are like drilling and measurement, or cementing, or the one I'm in is called bits and drilling tools. So basically, yeah, back to the interview. So you kind of presented on one of these product lines just to kind of they're trying to get a feel for, can you grasp the lingo? Are you able to work with people? Are you able to talk?
Yeah.
Because right from the get go, you're thrown out to the wolves with some of the guys in the field, and you're like kind of expected to perform.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you did that, and then they kind of went through just information on the company, a couple different like team building stuff, and then dinner and things
Mm-hmm.
like that. And actually, that first day it went till, well, I think 3 in the morning. They kept us up till doing presentations.
Really?
Yeah,
Holy
so
shit.
looking back on it, it for sure was just trying to see like who can actually like grind it out, and like, because
Yeah.
if you're in the field and something's going wrong, like you can't be like, oh, I'm going to bed, boys, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
like you gotta stay up, right? So they're definitely testing to see like who can handle that kind of aspect,
Yeah.
right? And
Did
then
they did they tell you about, like, you'd have to know one of those you said they break it down to those three kind of operating areas or whatever, and you have to have the knowledge of it. Did they tell you that to go in, or did you just get kind of dropped on that as you walked in the interview?
So they actually, yeah, like maybe a day before, they sent out an email with like a list, and they said you're with these 2 or 3 other people, and you're presenting on this,
Right.
and that's kind of all they gave you, right?
Wow.
So it was up to you to
Holy
like
shit.
kind of research that idea and
Yeah.
communicate with those team members. Like you had their emails, but that's about it, right? And kind of get
Wow.
something together. So for me, it wasn't too bad because like I had worked in oil and gas, so like I
Yeah.
knew kind of the basics around everything. But like
Hmm.
for one of the girls in my group, she had worked in like plasma engineering. She was doing her master's in that from like I think McGill or something. So she had like no clue what was going on. But I mean, like I was looking at her, I was like, man, I feel like you're too smart for this. Like,
I hate to pull you away from the story so quickly, but what the hell is plasma engineering? I just listened to a podcast the other day on he was a plasma physicist and going over just like what plasma is and stuff. But what is plasma engineering?
so the way she was describing it, and like we didn't go too in depth with it, but it was basically it's
Right.
like a fourth matter of state or state of matter.
Fourth. Yeah.
So it's like not uh, a solid, but it's also not like
Hmm.
it's kind of it has properties
Yeah.
of all three. So for,
Yeah.
like I know one of them, fire is an example of it.
Yeah. It's a superheated gas, right? Like the sun is plasma, all those things are plasma, and all
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
plasma
yeah.
streams. Yeah, so that's what he was saying. There was like two types of plasma, like hot plasma and cold plasma. And
Okay.
like they said, plasma is when like it takes an electron out of something else. I can't remember what it was. But it makes it like super high temperature. So like that's like what
Yeah.
the sun is and stuff. But cold plasma, it doesn't have enough like free electrons or something to heat up, so it stays in like a cooled state, but you still get like the properties of plasma, and that's like what cold
Okay.
plasma is. And they said like that was a huge technology change in like cell phones. He said pretty much any tech these days all uses like cold plasma. Like people don't look at it as if that's what it is, but really like
Mhm.
if you want to get down to the or not the biological, the real deep down level, it's all plasma at the end of the day. And it was super interesting, but again, way over my head. But I was just thinking, that's how often do you hear the word plasma like 3 times in a week ever? That's amazing.
Yeah. Shit. Sounds
Serendipity.
like you know more than me about it. So
Well, I was just saying, I just listened to a podcast on it like literally
yeah.
yesterday. That's funny. So anyways, you go through that interview process. They have you there till 3 in the morning.
Yeah. So then, oh, and then of course, so the next day they have like a presentation for like through the company that's like kind of like a panel of like uh, women who had successfully like come up in the company and done well because Schlumberger kind of had known in the past to be a pretty like male dominated company, so they're really trying to push
Right.
like having that female presence.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, like it was in the French time zone because that's where like one of their headquarters is.
Right.
So Paris time zone. So it was at 6 in the morning. So we go to bed at 3. They say there's this presentation at 6. Oh, but it's optional. You guys can choose if you want to come or not, and then we'll start the day at
In an
7.
interview
But you
process. That's
very
funny.
well knew that like
Yeah.
if you didn't show up, you probably weren't getting the offer, right?
That's so funny.
So yeah, then you're up at 6. Then you had a full day of like kind of like toured one of their facilities that was kind of in South Calgary. It was just so their drilling and measurement facility. So they just kind of had a more in-depth kind of look at like kind of the maintenance side of the business and
Mhm.
talked with a couple different like engineers and managers there about what their day to day is like, what work in the company's like, just to see if you were kind of a good fit, right?
Yeah.
And then
And
once you
and at that point, do you already know that you're going to Saudi Arabia, or is that
no no no,
or
this
is
is way
you don't know
before.
where?
At this
Okay, so
point,
do you
I thought I was gonna be in Grand Prairie to be honest, because
you could have come and been with me? Oh
yeah
man, that
yeah.
hurts.
So one of their biggest kind of product line at the time for Alberta was fracking, right? And that
Yeah.
their base is in Grand Prairie, so that's kind of
Yeah.
and that's what I was doing with Shell, so that's kind of where I figured they were gonna put me, right?
Right.
Um, so, but anyways, back to it. Like, yeah, so
Yeah.
we're touring this facility, yeah, asking questions, learning about the tools, learning about how they make them up, learning about different guys and their experiences and whatnot.
Hmm.
So, kind of finish up just after lunch, and then we start doing some like individual interviews, and that was usually
Right.
with like an engineer and a recruiter. And they were booked for about an hour, but most of them were only about 45 minutes because at that point you had spent like almost 2 full days with them, right? So it was actually a really
Right.
weird interview. Like I walked in and they only asked me questions that were like super like vague and weird. So like the first question they asked me was like,
Uh-huh.
so you have a pizza and you can only cut it 3 times, but you need 8 slices. How do you do it? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, I don't know. But then I was like, well, 2 to the 3 is 8, right? Like exponential. So I kind
Yeah.
of figured it out this way. So it's like you got to cut it in half and then stack it and then cut it in half again and then stack it. So that's how you
There
get
you
your
go.
8. But yeah, it was all questions like this. Like nothing about like,
Yeah.
oh, like what did you do at Shell? Why do you want to work at Schlumberger? Nothing like
Mhm.
this. Just questions like these, right?
Yeah, they just want to see if you can solve problems. And it's so funny to hear that so many times because just from watching you mainly and some of our other engineers go through engineering school, it just seemed like so much of it was just like trying to grind you guys out to see who will fall off and just keep the best of the best. And then it's funny to hear you say that about the interview process too, if they're doing the same damn
Yeah,
thing. And then right every step of the way, they're almost just it's not about actually your working knowledge. It is about that, and it's very important too. But a lot of it is just about can you stick it out and can you be there when shit goes wrong and not just run away and just run into these problems and solve them. Right. That's so much
yeah,
of what
exactly.
every business is. Right. That's a
Hmm.
big change that I noticed with my hiring. Right. A lot less of it is trying to figure out depending on the job role, right, and how much technical knowledge it requires. But so much more of it now is just trying to get a sense, like you say, of can I work every day with this person? Are they gonna step up when times get tough? And it's just so much of all these schoolings and stuff are trying to masquerade as if they're trying to teach you certain things, but most of it is just that itself, right? Just showing who can cut it, who's got the right stuff, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then after that part, basically we went back to they had like a hotel booked for us and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think we had like another team building event there, and then we went out for dinner, and it kind of was just a booze fest to be honest at dinner.
How
Like
many people are in this process? Like, how many people are you interviewing against, and how many positions is there? Like, is it
so
really
they
competitive? Is it kind of camaraderie or
um,
what?
so basically like to take it back to the very start is
Hmm.
Schlumberger will go to your school and host like one of those like campus recruitment
Yes.
events like
Right. Right.
a career fair, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
regardless if you're the best candidate in the world, if you don't go to them and talk to them at the career fair, they won't hire you. Um, so after you go to the career fair, you talk to them. They send out an initial round of like first interviews, which is just kind of like a 30-minute casual chat. Um, and then the second round interview is this whole process where they fly you into
Hmm.
Calgary and go through all this stuff.
Right.
So the first round interviews, I think there was maybe 20 people from U of A, and they ended up taking 6 people to the second round. And then, so from all across Canada, it was, I want to say, about 25 students maybe. But they also have like different recruitment times in the year. So I think they had
Hmm.
4 sessions over the year. So yeah, about 100 total would be my guess that they interviewed
Holy.
in my year. So, but
Wow.
yeah, so then we get to this dinner and it's just, yeah, kind of a booze fest. So you're kind of just, like, it's funny. The recruiter was like, yeah, there's only 2 rules. No shots and you can't leave before midnight.
That's awesome. If I had to take my guess at it, that's probably partially where you won that job. If I had to guess, because I know you, I got to do university with you. I got to see your nightlife skills.
Yeah,
You're a pretty
I
fun
gotta make
guy.
sure sometimes when I'm out in the professional scene, you tone it back a little. Like you
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
be,
3 notches. Three
yeah,
notches.
you can't be doing like teamer challenges with the boss. So
No, no. Well, you can, but it might not end up well.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's
um,
funny.
but yeah, and then next morning my flight back was at like 8 a.m. or something brutal. So
Ooh.
like stumble back to the hotel at like 2, couple hours of
Yeah.
sleep, get on a plane, head home, and then the worst part was like it was kind of right in the middle of like grind season, and it was for like my capstone that we were grinding for. So
Hmm.
um, like I had a team I was working with, right, and like I didn't want to let them
Hmm.
down, and I just
And
pieced
just
off for a whole weekend. So then, like
right,
when I get
right.
back to Edmonton, it was like I'm already behind on my shit. It's not like if it was
Uh-huh.
like midterms or something, if I slacked off, then it's
Hmm.
on me. But like it was like
Yeah.
capstone time, so I had to get back right to it right again. So
And what is a capstone? Just for some people that don't know.
yeah, so a capstone is for engineering. You do it in like your last semester, or some
Right.
even do it over their last entire year. And it's
Hmm.
basically an accumulation. It's supposed to be like an accumulation of all your knowledge that you've learned in engineering all through your first to your fourth year of all the technical aspects, also like the kind of like the soft skills that you're learning. So like how to present things, how to use
Hmm.
data and be persuasive. Um, that kind of sort of thing. And then yeah,
Hmm.
it's basically an all-encompassing project where they give you like a real life problem, and they give
Hmm.
you the whole semester to kind of, okay, how would you approach this? What's the kind of the solution you're proposing? What's
Hmm.
the simulation behind it? What's your rationale? How did you rank your criteria of
Hmm.
weighing between different options? What's
Right.
your final like economics if this project was to go through? Like what's your expected rate of return? All these kind of things. So it's just that kind of final summation of all your knowledge. And I think our report was like, the report itself was maybe like 80 pages, but with appendices, I
Holy
think it was like
shit.
400 and something pages. Like it was a
So
thick
it's a
boy.
pretty big deal to be going through plus this interview process. So okay, so then you fly back to Edmonton at that point. Holy man. And you get jump right back to your capstone, or is there more that you had to do for the interview part?
No, so the interview part was done at that point. So it was
Hmm.
basically kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting for that call, right? And that's always the worst time too, because they're
Yeah.
always like, "Oh yeah, it'll be about a week," and then it's 2 weeks, and then it's 3 weeks, and then you call
Yeah.
them and they're, "Oh, we're just finalizing some things." So
And
that's
and
the
still
worst part.
at that point, are you still thinking you're going to like more likely going to Grand Prairie or somewhere in Canada at that point?
Yeah, at that point still, because like I kind of hinted at like, oh, I'd love to go international during the interview process, and they kind of kept going, oh, there's nothing right now, but we'll kind of see and things like that. Like
Hmm.
never anything for sure. So yeah, at that point I
Okay.
was still thinking like, oh, Grand Prairie, here we go.
Yeah. Come to see me. I don't even know if I was in Grand Prairie at that point. No, I think I was at that point
Yeah, I
because
think
I
you
had already
might have just
graduated.
just been up there for yeah, must have been a little bit.
Yeah. Anywho, so
So
then how long do you not hear from them for?
So it's probably about 2 weeks later, and I started getting
Right.
texts from like the people that I was with saying like, "Oh, I got an offer for wellheads," or "Oh, I got an offer for drilling muds," and I'm sitting there thinking like, "Shit!" Like I thought I killed that, and I thought I had like a
Yeah.
great resume for it. Like I was really kind
Hmm.
of like, not dumbfounded, but just like I didn't understand why.
Yeah.
So I finally like gave the recruiter a call, left a message, just hey, just wondering if there's any updates on everything. He calls me back. He's like, "Yeah, we're just finalizing some things. I'll give you a call probably in about a week and stuff." So I kind of figured I was kind of like the second tier. So if
Yeah.
someone would have rejected it, then they would have gone to me or something. And so they're
Hmm.
kind of keeping me on the back burner. So I was like, "Oh, that kind of sucks." But whatever, like we'll see in a
Hmm.
week, right?
Yeah, and you're
And
still
then
young at that point. It's not the be all end all. You'd find something, but still one
exactly, yeah.
something that you
So
wanted.
yeah, yeah. So then I get a call a week later, and the guy goes, "Hey, I got an offer for you. Got some good news. Like I got a position in bits and drilling tools in Aberdeen." And I go, "Well, where's Aberdeen?"
That's what I was gonna say.
So he's like, "Oh, that's Scotland." And I was like pumped. Like I
Oh,
was kind of like lost for words, right?
holy fuck, that'd be sweet.
Yeah.
Oh,
So like I'm like on my high horse, just pumped up,
yeah,
right? Tell the boys are all pumped, right? Call my
yeah,
mom, she's crying. She's like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss you, but I'm so happy," right?
yeah,
It's a phenomenal day, right? It was a Friday
yeah,
too, so like I think we all went and got beers that night. Like it was just a
uh,
great day. And
yeah.
then like another good part of it too was like my girlfriend Laura, she's her mom's like a British citizen, so she
Oh,
could have
right.
easily got a visa to get over there with me too, right? So she
Oh,
was thinking
right.
after like I got settled in, she'd come over.
Hmm.
So that was all great and set in stone. And then
Hmm.
he's like, yeah, the offer letter will probably take a while just because it's kind of back and forth between Canada and UK before it gets to you. So hold tight. It might be like kind of upwards of a month, but we'll get it over to you. Don't worry.
Hmm.
So at that point, I kind of told all my other like job prospects like I'd found something because like I was so
Hmm.
pumped about this.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then I kind of asked, okay, start date wise, when are you guys looking to kind of start me in training and stuff? And he said it takes some time with the visa and everything. So I'd say probably October we're looking at. So, and I was like, okay, perfect. Like I kind of wanted to travel and see the world a little bit. So
Hmm.
I'll get a chance to do that. So then I want to say maybe right before I left for traveling, I got a weird email from him saying like, oh, actually, um, there's been some changes in the business, and they ended up selling part of the product line I'm supposed to work in, right?
Right.
So your location might change. And I said, oh, okay, like I guess I'll find out. But I was kind of being positive and optimistic, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like kind of looking at a map, like where they have operations. I'm like, oh, Singapore, could be New Zealand, could be Australia, could be Norway.
Yeah.
Like this could be cool, like And
Yeah.
then I kind of, and this was the worst part about it was I was joking with Laura saying like it's gonna be like Saudi Arabia or Iraq, and now you can't come, right? And sure enough,
Ah,
I still remember it. Like we're in Vietnam having a blast. Like we're on like a Halong Bay cruise, right?
right.
And we'd just been like boozing the night before we were getting ready for a hike or something. And I get the email and it's like, yeah, new location, Saudi Arabia. And I was like, oh, like my heart just kind of sank. And it was nothing
Yeah.
against the country or the
No, of
opportunity
course
or
not.
anything, but
Yeah.
it just kind of had gone from. It was such a big difference, right? You
I
go from like,
know.
yeah. So I kind of told her, and she was, of course, like pretty bummed about it. So,
Yeah.
and I said,
But
like, okay, well, I have like a couple weeks to think about it. Like, I'm not set on this and stuff. So,
mhm.
we kind of talked about it for the next week, and she was super supportive and understanding. She's like, I know this is like a really great opportunity, and like it's gonna be hard and stuff, but you know what, like if you want to do it, like I'll support you. It's totally up to you and stuff. And so I said okay, and I don't know. There's kind of some fishy stuff along the way where they told me it was gonna be a rotation, and then it wasn't a rotation, and then
Yeah, I remember hearing
now,
this kind of just secondhand part from you, part from like Chase and other guys. But I remember hearing, yeah, first it was Scotland, then it was there, it was Saudi Arabia, and then yeah, it was going to be. But didn't they say you were going to have a really sick shift at the start, like where you get a bunch of time off and you could travel all the time and stuff?
yeah,
What was
yeah.
that?
So I guess there was just kind of some miscommunication because
Yeah,
Lumberjay is such a big company, right? And like
for
the
sure.
HR office in Canada has little contact with the HR office in Saudi, and
Yeah.
every place kind of treats their contracts
Hmm.
differently. And probably a mistake on my part is when I signed the offer letter, it mentioned nothing about a rotation, and all I heard was like from the recruiter that, oh yeah, in Saudi it's always 6-3. So I kind of took word as bond, which obviously kind of
Yeah.
bit me in the ass. But so yeah, so now I'm kind of in this weird limbo phase where, well, right now it wouldn't even matter if I'm on rotation because
You're
COVID's
locked
got me
in.
stuck
Yeah.
here, right? Yeah, like the international flights are completely locked out. I think they've been locked
Mhm.
out since mid March, I want to say. So,
Right.
um, but yeah, I'm trying to kind of figure that out right now with my boss and kind of see if we can find a little bit of a middle ground just with everything going on. But
Hmm.
it's hard,
But
it's
it's just
hard to
up in the
ask
air
for
right
things
now.
like that right now
Hmm.
because we just saw oil go negative for the first time
Hmm.
ever, right? So like
Hmm.
it's kind of if you're asking your boss for all these perks when they're barely breaking even on a lot of things, it's hard to justify, right? So and you never want to be that guy at work who's feels
Exactly.
like he's asking for too much at the wrong time either. But on
Hmm.
the other hand, like you want your fair cut, and
Yeah,
you want to be treated with respect, and you enjoy your life and all these
for
sort of
sure.
things. So it's just, yeah, I'm hoping we can find kind of a middle ground on things and
Hmm.
whatnot. So
So how long were you in Saudi for before COVID kind of took over before March there?
I start how Summer Day does it is they've got, I think, three or four main training centers. So Oklahoma's one.
Hmm.
Uh, what's that place in
Lots of
Russia
fracking
called?
there.
Siberia. Siberia,
Mm.
they have one. I think Europe, so just south of Paris, they have one, and then Abu Dhabi, they have one. So that's in
Oh wow.
UAE. So I went to UAE for training for
Oh
about,
right, I remember that.
yeah. So that was actually awesome. Like a lot
Yeah.
of good, fun people there. Like it was just sweet meeting people from all over the world. Like there's people
Hmm.
from like Brazil, there's people from Colombia, U.S., Canada, Oman, UAE, Australia, like
Aussies.
you name it, they were there, right? Russia,
Yeah.
Kazakhstan, like people from all over. So it was just really
Hmm.
interesting, like actually talking to people from all over the world, kind of putting them in a group setting that's a little bit forced at first, but like you break down pretty quick and build
Yeah,
some
you
good
become
friendships.
friends.
And we still have like a group chat and we still talk, and we're kind of like planning maybe one day to like all meet up somewhere. Like a couple of them were from Brazil, so we were thinking maybe we'll go to like Carnival and in Rio
Yeah,
one year. Things like that. So yeah, it was actually pretty sweet. We had about, I think, 8 weeks of training there, or 9 weeks of training.
that's a good gig.
They were pretty like intense though. So with and like is I guess it's pretty cutthroat, but So you had a test at the end of every week, right? So there they work Sunday to Thursday because Friday is like their religious day,
Right.
because it's a Muslim country, right?
Yep.
So Friday, Saturday
Makes
is
sense.
off.
Hmm.
So yeah, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you'd have class, and then maybe like a little bit Thursday, and then test Thursday. And if you failed two tests, you either had to do like you're technically supposed to get let go at that point, but a lot of times they
Wow.
made exceptions. So like here, if you
Hmm.
do this extra assignment, we'll give you a bump, but you got to do like at least this much better on these tests, right? Or
Holy
something like
shit.
that. So I think we started with in my product line we started with 12, I want to say, and we ended with 8.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so some locations, if they're really desperate for people, then they'll send you back to the location, give you some field experience just as like a trainee, and then send you
Hmm.
back to redo the school. But some
Hmm.
places, it's like if you don't pass the school, like see ya, you're not cut out for this.
Hmm. Especially
And
right now with where oil's at too, is it you probably got to be the best of the best right now, I
oh
would
yeah,
think.
I mean it's competitive, right? Like before they used to have like in their classes, I heard like the place was always full, and then when I was there, it was like only a couple of the floors were full. So it's
Hmm.
you can definitely see the drop off, and even now like they haven't had training, partly because of COVID, but with the oil price too. Like I've heard of some people getting offers pulled that were supposed
Yeah,
to start
bit of a
in
hiring freeze.
yeah, exactly. So but yeah, so Abu Dhabi was fun city. Like there's lots to
Yeah, I
do.
can imagine.
And you always had the weekends to kind of go out and explore. So headed into Dubai a couple of the weekends. It's only about
Nice.
an hour drive, so that was a cool experience. Like that city, man, it's like it's unbelievable that 40 years ago it was nothing, and now it's like
That's
it almost feels like when you're in kind of like the downtown happening parts, it feels like a Singapore or something. It's got all these like super modern, cool buildings.
yeah.
It's super clean. It's well developed. Like everybody there, it's like just a bunch of like people from around the world. So it's not
Hmm.
like really like one specific type of
Yeah.
person or race or religion. It's like just kind of a melting pot
Hmm.
of all these different types of people. So it's yeah, it's a really cool city in that aspect.
Yeah.
And so we'd spend a couple weekends there, and then couple weekends just cruising around in Abu Dhabi. Like they have like the world's fastest roller coaster there. So that was an experience for sure. Like
Yeah.
they give you these glasses that are kind of just like safety glasses because like I guess people are getting like bugs and shit in their eyes.
Just cruising, hey?
Yeah. So when like this was the best part. Like when a dog's like driving down the highway and he sticks his mouth out of the window and
Yeah,
it's got
got the
like it
flappings
blows
going.
up, right? Yeah, so it was exactly like that. Like when the roller coaster shoots you, like your mouth's open and just blows up like a balloon, and you're just
Yeah,
catching flies in there.
that's hilarious.
So
Oh, that's
yeah, there's a
awesome.
couple, and like it's definitely a little bit more. I don't want to say progressive of a country, but a little bit more open to different ideas. So like you're allowed to
Mhm,
drink there, for example. They have
mhm.
beaches
'Cause
where you can wear.
Dubai, you can't drink, correct?
Dubai, you can. Saudi
Oh, you
Arabia, you
can.
can't.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so
That's what I'm
Dubai and Abu
confusing.
Dhabi, like UAE, is a little bit
Yeah.
more yeah, like just a little bit looser with the rules. So yeah, you can
Mhm.
you can wear like bikinis and shorts at the beach. You can
Thank God.
yeah,
I know how you like your Speedo.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, just things like that. You could drink. You can. I think they allow different like religious groups to open up like you could have
Mhm.
a synagogue there or a
Yeah.
church as well.
Mhm.
So it's like a little bit yeah, it's just a little bit more open in that aspect. So yeah, it's a cool country for sure, and it's crazy how fast it's developed. Like I said, like
Yeah, it's wild.
and you know what I actually what was found really cool was like everyone when they hear Dubai, they're like, oh, it's an oil city, right? Like they've actually like tailed off their oil a crazy amount. Like it's only 5% of their GDP now.
Really?
Yeah, so that what they've done is they've just like heavily reinvested like all their funds from their oil
Yeah.
programs into they started like free trade zones, so they've got like some of the biggest port accesses in the world around there. It's
Wow.
one of the largest hubs for like jewelry trade and like gold trade.
I
Um,
didn't know any of that.
it's like it's got a bunch of really great like world renowned golf courses now.
Mhm.
In terms of tourism, like they got hotels
Yeah.
everywhere. Like
And
if
and they want it so bad. Like remember a couple couple months back, maybe even a year back there, UFC wanted to have a fight in Dubai, and they built a stadium in like 2 months for
Oh
them,
yeah,
just for that. Like they just threw it up, put in all the AC and stuff. Apparently, it was hot as balls in there, and everyone's just sweating. But they said it was
yeah,
amazing how quickly it went from nothing. It was just a clear patch of almost desert, and then they throw up a fully functioning arena with like stands and like
yeah,
huge crowds. It's wild. So it
yeah.
just shows the lengths they'll go to just to bring commerce there, right?
Right.
Holy shit.
And it's definitely an interesting change of perspective on how they do things there. Like there, it's like if they want to do it, they'll do it, right? There's no
Mm-hmm.
red tape, there's no regulatory, there's no this, that, and the other approval. You know, if this
Mm-hmm.
group of people don't want it, but it's going to benefit the city in terms of development, they're going to do it, right? So, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
very different mindset of what we have, especially in Canada. And you
Right.
know, there's it's not to say that one way is better than the other, but it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting seeing two exact opposite sides of the spectrum, right?
Yeah. And that's always my biggest thing with environmental change going forward. I always think this is what bugs me so much is people want to curtail environmental impacts going forward, which is a great cause and I support it fully. I understand the importance of it. But if the demand can't shrink, right? Like all this activism is going after the supply, but they can't shrink the demand for it. Why not start to incentivize the countries that do try their best to regulate it as much as you can and put these things in place to make their resources as clean as possible, and then try and funnel your resources over to them, right? Why would you buy if you could rank all these countries and companies of how they do their process and how much effort they put into doing it in the cleanest, most safe way possible? Where I think Canada kind of shines, um, and instead of trying to cut back all the supply that you can, just cut back at the worst edge. Just stop buying from the very worst of the worst, where there's no regulation, right? And start to bring it back towards the places that are doing it in a more sustainable way, because there's companies like Schlumberger that have operations in Canada, in, like you said, all those countries across the world, right? If you started to incentivize and show with the buying power that you want to, you value that, and countries like Canada that have these vast stores of oil underneath the ground, but still import how much oil from around the world, why not try and change the incentive program, right? I still think you need to, all these other programs are great, incongruent with that, but why not, as a first step, try and at least move the demand that we need to these cleaner, I know it's rough to call it anything clean, but cleaner or safer practices in countries that do it, right? That just blows my mind that that isn't the first step that we go to, instead of going after these countries that do have a lot of regulatory practices in place, and try and shut them down and shut down their ability to make money, when there's countries around the world that, I'm sure down some of those places in South America, there's not much you know regulations or safety. I don't think they're having tailgate meetings before every day and all those kind of things, but nobody looks into that when they're trying to do their cost benefit analysis of what it is. It's just, this is bad, environment good, attack wherever the easiest vector is, right? And lots of times close to home, because in countries where the regulatory systems aren't up to par with some of the other ones, usually they have bigger issues to deal with at that moment, more pressing issues than the environment, right? That's just not, they're not incentivized to worry about that, because they have bigger things to fry, right? Whether it's social welfare issues, poverty. Lots of these countries that don't have the regulations have bigger fish to fry from their mindset, right? And it takes the countries that are buying from those to rectify that and incentivize the right kind of things, right? That should be the first step if we want to make real change, is just incentivize people the right ways, right? Right now, we're just incentivizing people to go wherever it's cheapest, and cheap usually goes along with lack of regulation, really, in my head. It seems like a very easy change, um, easy change of mindset to really drive us forward, instead of getting our tires stuck in the mud trying to fight for environmental change. Why not change our mindset, and then we're at least going on the right path, and we can start making these programs more efficient. You know what I'm saying? Not to take it on a whole nother tangent there.
Yeah. No, man, I'm completely on board with you. Like, I think this whole climate change and you know the energy transition, we got to look at it. This is not a country by country problem that's going to be solved by a singular country. It's got to be a global approach to it, right? So,
Exactly.
the classic example I give is, if if Canada can build an LNG plant and it's going to displace coal in
Mm-hmm.
Southeast Asia, like China, Japan, Korea, if it's gonna, if we're gonna produce, 1 million more gigatons of CO or gigatons of CO2 a
Mm-hmm.
year, but it's gonna save 300 gigatons of CO2 over there, then that's a win. That's a win for the world. Of
Exactly.
course, it's technically a loss for Canada, but it's a massive win for the world. And I think we need to start looking more macroscopically at these sort of issues and kind of attacking it this way. And if you look at, and you're right, the the supply will come from somewhere. If
Mm-hmm.
Canada cuts back, it's only going to come from somewhere else, right? The demand
Mm-hmm.
is not changed by someone changing their supply. We're not, no singular country has that kind of pricing power, except
Mm-hmm.
maybe Saudi or the U.S.
Yeah.
But even
Yeah.
still, we've seen them try and manipulate the markets without any success, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to
Usually
start
crashes
pulling,
and
right?
burns. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm totally on board with that. It's got to be, and why
Mm-hmm.
are we, if you go, the classic example I think is if you go with coffee, especially, we're so quick to go to coffee brands that are, naturally ethically sourced from good countries that have high regards for human rights, isn't
Mm-hmm.
produced by people living in poverty. We're very particular about a lot of products that, um, where are they coming from, where are they sourced from, and we're very quick to pick and pay even extra for products that are kind of
Mm-hmm.
superior in that regard. But for some reason, when we go to the pumps to fill up the car, with that disconnect that we're not seeing, I don't know if it's the fact that it's so far down the pipeline that we're not seeing the
Mm-hmm.
effects of where it's coming from, that we don't, that there's sort of kind of a blind spot there to where this
Yeah.
is coming from. But I don't know why oil and gas is treated any differently. Like why aren't we supporting locally where we know that our ethics are good, we have safety, we have,
Mm-hmm.
um, like if you're to look at the wages compared to in Canada of what the guys are on the rigs are making compared to other parts of the world, it's
Mm-hmm.
vastly different, right? Like and yeah, the overall safety, the environmental
Mm-hmm.
regulations, we
Yeah.
should be, we should really be supporting it here, I think, because yeah, if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't come from here, it's going to come from somewhere else at this
Yeah.
point. So,
But what's unfortunate is that if you're somebody that really cares and wants to make a change, um, you're probably in a country that's pretty well off, right? If that is where your priorities are, where you can have enough of your life be stable enough, and everything's going well, where the environment is your chosen battleground, just per se,
mhm.
you're probably from a pretty affluent country, right?
Yeah.
Now, so just saying an easy example, if you're from America or Canada, now you can. You can look for where you can make a change, and you're looking for what's close and easy, right? A lot of the time you want what's close, so you
Mhm.
attack what's in, you attack the oil sands if you're in Canada or the US, because it's right there. You're not going to go to protest Venezuela's environmental regulations about their drilling, right? They're just not going to do that. It's not easy, right? It might be the more effective use of your time, because if a place like Canada or the US to a certain extent has these regulations in place already, you're fighting a battle that's already partially won. They're kind of already on board. They're at least doing it, whereas these other countries aren't even doing it at all, right? And it's just so unfortunate to watch them. And then you see a country like America where the the fight against Canadian oil benefits America directly, right? The less we produce, the more they produce, the better they are, right? We're in the very same spot. We do a lot of trade between each other. So then
Mhm.
you start to see all this money flowing. It's because that is incentivized American companies to go after Canadian oil. Now
Mhm.
there's all this secret money flowing to all these groups attacking Canadian oil, right? There's millions and millions of dollars flowing out of pockets that aren't environmental in any sort. They're giving it to environmental causes, but it's just to uh, attack the supply of one, right? It just creates more demand on theirs if they can curtail the supply coming from Canada,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that goes with blocking pipelines, right? There's a couple pipelines that could be built in Canada that would change change our place on the world stage in the oil market, right? There's a like
Mhm.
immediately, but there's so much money flowing in from all these companies that don't want to see it because they don't want Canada to become that power, right? They'd rather it just be the United
Definitely. Yeah.
States. So then all this money starts to flow. But I see what would change that is that mindset change I talked about, of actually having people understand now it's not about just shutting it down wherever it's easiest, just going, I want the environment to be changed, so I'm going to go to my closest drilling rig, which is probably Fort McMurray, and I'm going to attack that. Okay, well, maybe let's do that as well, but let's also look on the grand stage, because a country like Canada or the US would be willing to listen and be able to put these regulations in place, right?
Hmm.
Where maybe if you're fracking, you're worried about water tables, right? The amount of different cement columns and pressurized systems to create safety so that it doesn't ever lose that pressure and start shooting, you know, whatever it is, natural gas into the water tables, or that sort of thing. Um, and then another country has just one single film of layer between that, right? They're just to cut costs. They don't want to pay for the cement just per se. It might be wrong on what my technical of what's happened, but just for an example, right? You have a
Yeah.
country that's using, say, one layer of concrete to protect the water table, and one country's using three, like Canada. Like I've heard Canada has one of the most in-depth ways of fracking, where they put multiple layers so that they're really protecting the water tables.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know it to a T to make this argument super sound, but what is that worth to people? Now, that extra money you pay to have those environmental controls in place, that should be valued by the market, right? And people should be going towards that. And now they appreciate it. And then you see all these videos of people turning their taps on, and they can light it on fire in some of these places, and
Hmm.
you didn't there's no incentives to these companies to protect the environment from that to a certain point, right? Because nobody
Right.
values it. They're all just valuing it as if oil is oil. It doesn't matter how it's come out of the ground. We just need to lower our how much we produce of it, regardless. But
Hmm.
people don't understand that, like you said, it's going to come from somewhere. If we start to incentivize these practices that are more safe, we can just have we know we need, say, 50% of the global demand right now. If we just said, before we even look at any of these countries that aren't on our level yet, we have to be going to these 50%, that is the safest, cleanest 50%. And doesn't mean that we stop trying to make it better and stop developing all these new technological processes to make these better, even in these countries that are already steps ahead. We don't slow that down, but you start to incentivize it, right? And then that picks up. Now, not only are you saying, because what are you telling these companies that are trying to make their practices safer and more green, when it doesn't matter that you're getting more green? We're still attacking you just as if you're the worst person on earth, and all these other countries are just producing with no environmental controls. So they're in fact being incentivized not to, because they're winning the game by being able to operate with a cheaper with cheaper processes, because they don't have to work within all these regulations, right? So now we're just the incentive structure in my head is just so off, and that's what makes me so angry, is just to watch people that are trying to do good. They're not bad people trying to fight for the environment. It's a great cause. I support it myself, right? I understand it, but I just think there's better ways to go about it. And just as, like I said, it's easy. They're not going to go after, Venezuela when Fort Max in their backyard. They're just going to go right to it. It's the easiest attack vector for them. But it's just that laziness of your work. If you really care about the environment, you could do a couple hours of research to find better ways to go about it, and you could see that you're actually doing more harm than good in what you're trying to do. Like, there's better ways. If you don't just go for the easiest one that everybody else is throwing to, and all this money is getting put towards telling you to go after this. Do some of
Hmm.
your own research. Be independent. You be a thinking human, and find what you're trying to do, if that really is your passion. But I think what's unfortunate is a lot of people just don't care that much. They just want to be seen as caring, right? So they want to have that badge of caring about the environment. And that's not everybody, but there's definitely a few where, if that was your goal, let's support with you, let's work with you, let's change these incentives, let's actually make a difference. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's
And I
my little
think,
soapbox.
yeah, I think one of the great kind of outputs of capitalism is that it's super consumer driven, right? And
Hmm.
people tend to forget that, because a case in point example of it is, look at companies now that are introducing like the non meat alternatives.
Right.
Like, if I was to tell you 5 years ago that McDonald's, Tim Hortons, A&W are gonna have burgers for vegetarians that aren't veggie burgers, but they're like, kind of genetically
Hmm.
modified, these fake beef burgers, you'd be like, no, dude, like that's not a
Hmm.
thing. And look at
Yeah,
it
we
now,
don't
it's
want that.
everywhere. It's
Yeah.
at Earl's, it's the consumers are
Yeah.
demanding it, and it's happening, right? Like, companies are very quick to react to what the consumer wants, and that's one
Hmm.
of the great things of capitalism, I think. So I think as a consumer, we got to look at, like, if you want to change the global demand, you got to look at your consumption habits, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think Canada's actually done a pretty good job in terms of, okay, well, where can we limit our single use plastics? Where can we
Mm-hmm.
up our recycling measures? Like if you look at the blue bins they've brought into Calgary, these kind of things.
Right.
So I think we're doing a really good step in that direction. And unfortunately, I think if you look at a lot of other countries, they're on the complete opposite side. Like, if you, for example, in Saudi Arabia, like a lot of, like we get our lunches and our dinners every day in like a styrofoam box with a plastic fork
Styrofoam.
in a bag
Oh,
and
I
a
watched
plastic bowl. And the whole rig crew is getting these. And it's like,
mhm.
how much waste is this creating, right?
Yeah.
And for them, is it kind of a from a stance of like we just don't really know, or do they don't
Mhm.
care? I think it's obviously probably a little bit of like we don't know to some extent, and spreading that out across anywhere other than kind of the really developed countries, it's still the consumption habits is very they're going to do what's cheapest, right? It's all about the dollar bills,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So, they don't have the funds to set up a recycling program. It's not going to happen. So I think,
Mhm.
again, on a global effort, we got to really look at, okay, how's our consumption habits, and how can we kind of evolve
Mhm.
these so that we can drive the demand where we want it, rather than, because if the
Mhm.
demand's there, the oil companies are going to give it to us. They have a responsibility to the shareholders to deliver value. So if the demand's there,
Mhm.
they're gonna go for it, right?
Yeah.
So I think it kind of falls a little bit back onto us in that
Mhm.
aspect.
And yeah, just you rung a bell in my head on when you say the styrofoam. I watched I don't know if it was a documentary or just a TV series. It was years and years ago on I can't remember which country in Asia, but about the styrofoam use and how every vending machine, everything's in styrofoam, and they just showed these landfills of styrofoam. It was just like
Mm-hmm.
mind blowing amounts, and I couldn't believe that just because we don't see styrofoam isn't
Yeah.
used that much over here, other than in packaging, which probably isn't the best as is. But it was just amazing to see that difference of what countries can do, right? You don't see realize the leaps that countries like Canada and the US have made in single use plastics and that sort of thing until you get that outside look at what they're doing, and then you see the difference. What was I going to say? Oh, what I wish you could do, and this is going to go a bit into unicorn fancy land rainbows of in a perfect world, but what I wish somebody could do, or a company, one of these environmental places, if you really wanted to fix the environment, you need to do a global study of the biggest factors, rank them in terms of the actual change that can be made and where they are by country, by by industry, by country, right? It's not just coal, it's coal per country, which country's coal is doing this, right? I think that would open up a lot of people's eyes, and then direct the funds of your try and build that as the basis of the new environmental models of environmental change, are going after the worst aspects. But I think there's a lot of pressure against that too, because I think that would open up so many eyes, and there's so many I think some of the biggest polluters, if you actually did that study, have so much power that they're trying to stop things. They just want to keep, it works better for them to just keep the easy ones, the easy attack vectors that they're already funding money towards to get the activists excited over and go after, because that's their pull, and that fits their economic game. They're pulling all the strings here, right? There's no one that's come
Mm-hmm.
out and just broke that wheel and said, no, this is I know there's all these money just getting funded into these programs to go after these certain things. Why are we listening to them? If all this money's coming from these companies anyway, are they really have our best interests at heart, or do they have some nefarious reasons, right? I wish we could just break out of that, find it, have a just dollars and cents, pros and cons list with all the emotion taken out of it of what the worst things attacking the earth right now is, and then divert all our money that way, right? And maybe we can start
Right.
to see where some of these programs aren't actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, because I think that is a huge part of it. I think Canada is one of the worst ones. I think there was some sort of study that showed the dollar amount that went from American companies into Canadian environmental rights activists with specific. It's just like a politician, I'm going to give you this $100 million, but I want something in the future, whatever it is. Same thing
Yeah.
there, right? They know, or else you just go for one that's already attacking the person that you want. And you just keep funding them money, keep them rolling, and make them really powerful, right? There's so many
For
ways that
sure.
we
For
do this,
sure.
but I think if you could take that, just that one extra step to where is this coming from? I know it's great that it's going money. These environmental programs are getting money, but you have to look at where it's coming from and what they're trying to do for me. Are you being controlled by it, right? I think that would be
Mm-hmm.
a huge step forward in where we could get to in terms, because at the end of the day, with that kind of program in mind, the end goal is trying to help the world as best we can, right? It just goes about it in a more efficient way in my mind, and I think that's where we need to get to. But I think there's so many people that don't want that to happen and would stand in front of it. But I think again, it's this it's public education at the end of it, right? At the end of the day, for this, all these programs I kind of mentioned, things I wish could happen, it's all comes down to the educating the public about these types of things, and it's so expensive to educate, and there's so much money in going into diseducation, right? That's my
Hmm.
biggest thing, is not only are we not doing it right, but we're just being fire hosed with all this other stuff, trying to attack our and focus our attacks into these other areas. How can we ever get better if we're just being spoon fed exactly what we need to go after, if we're not actually doing the work and doing the research to look at what's making a difference?
Right. Yeah, and I think it's going to be a really interesting next kind of 10 to 20 years here, because we're going to see a ton of kind of emerging economies come out, and
Mm-hmm.
they're really going to drive this, where's the energy demand going? Because if you look at, like India, China, Pakistan, the, these places have massive amounts of people, right? And they're
Mm-hmm.
all kind of emerging now as these, economic drivers, and they're going to demand a lot of energy. Like if you look at energy
Mm-hmm.
consumption of the average like Canadian or American or German or British
Mm-hmm.
person and compare that to these countries, it's vastly different. And I think you're going to start to see this gap start to narrow just with how the times are going. And these people and these countries don't have tons of money to throw around at popping up wind turbines that are going to pay out in 100 years, right? They're going to
Mm-hmm.
go, okay, well, how do we get energy to these cities, these towns, these wherever it is? How do we get it there quickly, efficiently, and cheaply? Like, what's our best
Yeah.
route? And
Mm-hmm.
you know right now a lot of that is, yeah, natural gas, coal, fossil fuels, these kind of things. So I think, you know as a country like Canada, it's really unfortunate to see us kind of lag behind in a lot of major projects and opportunities to kind of get our resources to markets like these, because we could be a leader in driving
Mm-hmm.
this, how this energy demand is going to go. But like we've seen it time and time again, how many big projects have been shelved over the last 5 years, how many pipelines have been canceled or delayed, or it just seems like it's the common theme these days that it's not happening. It's either in progress or it's canceled, right? And it's really disappointing to see, because eventually it's just going to get to a point where we're so far behind that you can't even play
Right.
catch up, right? Other places are going to capitalize on that opportunity, and it's going to the ship might have
Mm-hmm.
already sailed even. Who's to say about timing
Yeah.
wise and these sort of aspects, but it's definitely the time is kind of now to kind of get the ball rolling, because these projects aren't overnight things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially in Canada with all the regulatory and sign offs and consultation
Mm-hmm.
and government intervention. It takes years to get something like, first oil. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, LNG Canada is, I think it got approved in 2016, and they were expecting to start operations in 2019, and they were supposed to have first like shipment in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's a long time frame, right?
Uh-huh.
So
And
yeah,
then you run into roadblocks and people trying to fight you every step of the way on a program that takes 6 years to in place. You finally get the permission to do it, and then you have to keep fighting all these groups that are trying to prevent it. Um, and just keep getting funded and funded to keep that fight going throughout the whole lifetime of trying to get this project up and running. I remember being in school, we had a presentation. This guy, he came in, kind of broke down, like you just said, all these upcoming markets that are going to need energy. Specifically, he was an LNG guy, and he was just saying the amount of money, and he used kind of, I think it was Dubai as kind of his uh, golden goose example of what they did with that resource that they had, and just saying like that could be Canada. We could do that. We could do it in the right way, but we just have to jump on it right now, because like you said, we can miss the boat. It could if we don't get the project started to be able to get our product to market, it's going to come from some other country.
mm-hmm,
So now if you're, this is where rubber hits the road for me. So now if I'm an environmentalist in Canada, I live in Edmonton, and I'm anti-pipeline to the end of the day, because my goal is to reduce CO2 emissions. So I want to um, stop these pipelines from being put in. I don't want that oil and gas going to market. So now I've done my job. I get it shut down. I'm super happy. So now India goes, okay, well, we can't get it from Canada. It's a uh, there's no way to get it to market. We're going to go from Venezuela, and we're going to get it from there. Now, did your fight to stop the pipeline that went in that could have had our product get to market, did that actually help the environment, or did you stopping more regulated uh, more regulated fuel or whatever product we're talking about get to market actually hurt the environment? Because now that's like we said, the demand is always there, it's going to get filled somehow, but now it got filled by per unit CO2 emissions way higher, right? They actually are
Right.
hurting their goal and they don't see it, and there's nobody yelling that from the rooftops, which blows my mind because it's happening every day. There's so many things where they're just their incentive structure is off, and they think they're doing the right thing for their cause, but all they need to see is I'm actually hurting it, and we could change this around and start to get people on board for doing things in the right way, right? They're just their goal is noble and what they're going for is noble, but they don't realize they're being led astray, and they're not actually aligning their goals with what their tasks are in the end.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing that I have with people who say they're heavy environmentalists but they're anti-pipeline is, and I got actually in a pretty big argument. I was out at a conference for chemical engineering out in Quebec, and it was actually like really disappointing to see just how they viewed Alberta and oil and gas.
Uh,
Like it was U of C and U of A hung out, and the Quebec schools just kind of scowled at us. And when I was talking to people, and they're like, "Oh, so what do you do? Like, who do you work for?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm working at Shell right now." They kind of give you like, "Ugh,
mm-hmm.
gross." Like, and it's like, man,
Yeah.
like I'm trying to make a difference here. I'm trying to, make a career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting in a good effort and contributing to society here. But yeah, so anyways, back to my point, like especially when I had conversations with them about pipelines, they're like, "Oh, well, I'm an environmentalist. I don't support pipelines." It was like, okay, so the pipeline doesn't get built. That oil's still getting over there, and guess how it's going? It's going by train.
Mm-hmm.
And guess how much more CO2 is going to be produced when it gets shipped there by train rather than by pipeline? And I
Mm-hmm.
think obviously it depends on how far it is and things, but I think I saw a stat about TMX or something, or not TMX, Keystone XL, that it was like
Mm-hmm.
you'd produce 4 times more CO2 emissions that if you trained it down to the Gulf rather
Pipeline.
than pipelined it, right? So you're talking quite a large amount
Mm-hmm.
of CO2 extra, and
And
that's the thing is
safety
like,
too. When you look at how
oh,
often
definitely,
trails derail. I mean, in my hometown of Slave Lake, I think we've had a train derail like 3 times in my lifetime. Like that's
mm,
wild, wild,
yeah,
especially in Canada. I mean, you have a railroad in lots of countries. It's hard to keep the upkeep up, but now you throw in -40 to +30 35 temperature swings,
yeah,
-50 to, and now in these some like northern regions. And trying to keep pipeline or not pipelines in place, railroads upkeep and stuff, and not have a town like Slave Lake have their railroad go a little missing a bit of attention, have a rollover. What happened in Quebec with that oil tanker that went over and blew up that town of? Oh, it was a terrible, terrible scene, right? Like that's
yeah.
how often does that have to happen before people realize all the different things? Not to interrupt you, but yeah, no, it's wild, the all these different factors that make pipelines great, but you just can't hear that over the giant
Hmm.
yell of anti-pipeline. But that's where my question is: so now all these anti-pipeline movements, where are they all getting funded from?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look at where that money's coming from because who's
Mm-hmm.
benefiting from it, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, and I think the latest thing I've seen that just blows my mind is that even from the get go, it always kind of blows your mind when you hear that Canada actually still imports oil. Like, how are we? We have the third largest
Oh,
reserves in the world, and we're still importing oil. And it's like,
it
okay,
blows my
well,
mind.
if you bring it down to a cost basis, you can rationalize it, but you can make sense of it, like in terms of
Mm-hmm.
economics. But it's not rational. It's an easy fix, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now even like Irving Oil has said, okay, well, we want to start bringing Canadian oil to our refineries rather than oil from, I think actually Saudi is the biggest that we import from. So okay,
Right.
well, we can't build a pipeline. Quebec's opposed to it, right? So they're
Mm-hmm.
actually looking at literally taking an oil tanker or putting it on a train, shipping it to West Coast, putting it on an oil tanker, tanking it down through the Panama Canal and
Oh.
up the Atlantic coast into like where the Irvine
Mm-hmm.
refineries are. It's like,
And have you
like
and if
like the
Oh,
risk involved with that. Like now you're putting oil in ocean, which is like,
mm-hmm.
obviously if you have a spill there, it's there's no, okay, well we just got to remediate this land. Like it's in there,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
Yeah.
and then on top of that, like you're traveling, I don't know, maybe 10 times the distance that you need to, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it just boggles me that's even like something we're considering, right? As a country, like don't you think that it's time for us to step in and go like, whoa, 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 like all right, how much wasted resources are we going to spend when there's an easy solution that's right there for us to take?
Yeah. And have you ever
So,
seen how much it costs to take something through the Panama Canal?
no, is there like a crazy expense with
It's
it?
it's absurd. I can't remember what it is. I remember learning this a couple years ago, and I was flabbergasted. Maybe I'll just look it up quick, but I couldn't believe how much it costs to take something through there. I think it's like I want to say it was like 100,000. When we're talking those big, huge ships that we'd be talking that for you to bring that through and all the lock changes they have to do. I think it was like
Yeah.
something like 100 grand just to travel through it, right? Like and
Yeah.
you're trying to put all these economics to do backflips to make it look like it's going to work, but there's so many things that could have been done. One pipeline takes out all those different factors, right? The environmental
Yeah.
risk, the cost, the travel time, the efficiency. Like there's so many different areas that could be it just and it all comes back to that incentives in my head. They're not we're not incentivizing them to look at it the right way. They're being incentivized just to go after pipelines, and that's what they're being told is that's the cause. That's if you get pipelines taken down, that's a win in your books. But really, we have to change the definition of what is a win from just getting projects shut down, and it's almost the echo of this cancel culture, right? People don't really care about the environment. They just want to get something shut down. They want to make their impact on the world felt. They just want to tear down. Their way of getting their voice heard. But if
Right.
you can change that from that mindset to I just want the world to be cleaner, whatever way, form, or shape that takes, that's my goal at the end of the day. And if we can change that mindset, get people thinking that way, now we start to see these things for how they are, and we can start not getting so blinded by all the funding and what people are shouting at us to attack, right?
Right.
If Yeah, so that's my move. But I think it's starting to get there. I think things like podcasts and things like almost just the way the media is lying to people so often now and misrepresenting things. I think people are starting to open their eyes and start to do their own research, and I think that's a big pull. I think the internet itself is just put us in such a weird time right now that we are so free, and so we have everything within our fingertips with the internet at our hands. We can do anything, we can research, we can bring down anything, and that's scaring people, right? They're all trying to hold on to control and trying to, because with the system how it is, without giving the people that much pressure, they've been able to build all these people are sitting on their towers with all this money because they've built this game, and now people are starting to break out and realize, oh, that doesn't make sense, I did my own research, I looked it up, and that actually isn't how it is. And I think
Hmm.
that's what's changing, and more people are starting to take the red pill and open their eyes to that. And I think it's just the first steps. We're just starting to see it. But I think that's why we see so much craziness going on with the media and the politicians these days, because this is they're seeing that, like, oh man, things are changing. We don't want it to change, but we don't know how to hold on. They're all just scratching and clawing, right? We see it in so many areas. Even universities, I think they've over stuff themselves with all these admin costs and things just to keep that constant growth model going of what their university is, create jobs and all that. And they've got it to this point where now they're unmanageable, and people they're giving out degrees that are actually having no benefit to people, right? Like an engineering degree is probably the complete antithesis to what I'm saying, right? You actually are
Hmm.
learning hard skills, and like we said, that grind factor that can really show people what they're made of. And that piece of paper, while it may show that they know how to do a certain wealth of math and have a certain education base there, but really what that shows to me when I see somebody with an engineering degree is, oh, they can go through some shit, they can grind, they can stay up, they can work on these projects. That's what it's showing to people. But now the other side of it is there's these like literature majors and cloud studying that are just fluff, and nobody's making any money, and they're trying to hold on and kick and steal. But people are starting to realize, I'm not going to pay 40 grand for this degree. I can go online. There's Harvard and MIT classes that are just offered for free. I think that's changing, and I think also this COVID's going to escalate that quite drastically, because people aren't going to pay that amount of money for that. Like, people are starting to wake up to some of these systems that have just been in place for hundreds of years, so nobody questions them. But really, they're batshit crazy with the day we live in, right? Like how we can't have on big issues have online voting by this point, right? We figured out we've gone to the moon. We can't figure out a secure way with blockchain to have secure voting on certain subjects. So you don't have to vote for two people that have these wildly crazy views. I only agree with half the shit this guy says, but I only agree with 45% of the shit this other guy says. So I'm going to vote for him over him, when I could take my pick on these certain big issues and vote for them independently and not have it locked into one goofy bastard, right? You look at the States, they have a a wild man and a senile old man. That's their two options, like, and they have no other options. But I think that's starting to change over the next 10 to 20 years. Like you say, people are going to realize that, and there's going to be some real big clashes between authority and the people. And that's what we're seeing echoed in everything right now, in universities, I mean, what's going on in the world right now. I mean, there's some real clashes with authority, and they're trying to break it down. They're trying to cover it up. And now we're seeing the combinations between the two of, we'll go break all these rules and do all this terrible stuff to the people, and the media will cover it up. You see that video of the cops running over protesters in that barrier, and it showed the video of them running into them, and then it showed how the news did it, and they cut it right before it went to that. Like, now they think they're being clever by cutting it and helping out the other industries that have been in place for 100 years, nobody's questioned, right? They all want to look out for each other because they don't want to see this all start coming down. But they don't realize that everyone hops over onto social media and they see the full uncut video next to your video, and now you've lost all your credibility with the people, right? And I think more and more every day that's happening, and people, or else, you take a speech of somebody, you cut off the first bit and the last bit and just say the one little word, and you put a crazy headline on it. People click in and go, what the hell? This is bullshit, right? Like Forbes used to be an institution. When you heard Forbes on something, that meant something. I haven't clicked a Forbes article on Facebook or anything that hasn't been completely opposite of what the title says in like 6 years now. Like, I don't even, if it says Forbes, I don't even take it seriously. I know it's going to be some bullshit, but you've taken all your goodwill of what you've built up over these years and you've dumped it out for your last cash grab at these clicks. Everyone's going for these clicks, and they've lost all their integrity, and people are starting to wake up to it. And I think that is what's going to make the change. I think that's what has to change to get back to the environmental side, is that awakening that's happening in all these other areas. I don't see it happening with the environment. I don't see people waking up to this one yet. And that's what's getting me frustrated, because I think it's going to happen. It's just not happening at the pace that we want it to, right? Guys like me and you that have looked into it, but it's tough for us to, because when a guy like me or you tries to fight that fight and say, hey, we're all for the environment, we just think you can do this differently, you automatically get labeled with, oh, you're an oil and gas guy, all you want is just to ruin the environment, you don't care about any people. And it's like, no, we really do. We just think it could be done in a better way. But it seems like we need to get people that aren't in a position like me or you where we would benefit from it. We need the environmentalists to start waking up to this and start to see, oh, this is a change we can make. We got to get more in line. We got to change our values of what we're really going for. And that's when we'll really start to see the rubber meet the road, and we can actually make some real change. But until then, we're just going to keep attacking the same things that people want us to attack.
Yeah. And I think that kind of something I've noticed over the last couple of years is that open-mindedness is probably the most underrated thing that we have in society right now. And it seems like we've lost it a lot, and it's hard to have difficult conversations now. And I think if we can kind of get to a point where we can start to have these tough conversations and really dive into issues, because the issues we face right now are complex. Like, there's no one right answer. There's multiple levels. There's so many different moving parts with them, and if we can put the egos aside a little bit and have those difficult discussions and have a little bit of give and take, I think we're going to be miles ahead, rather than just butting heads and trying to prove that you're right, because that's not what these discussions should be about. It should be about finding common ground, understanding what's really going on, what's the underlying issues, what's the root cause, and how can we really get to that and stem some good out of this, right? And I'm not saying one side or the other coin is better or any worse for it. It's on both sides, right? And I think just as a group, as humanity, we gotta unite and attack these problems as one, because it shows time and time again, if you don't have that unity, it won't get solved. It's not going to go anywhere.
And that's exact. And you nailed exactly where I wanted to go with this. So I've named this podcast the VonDubCast, but what I wanted to name it, but I thought this was too artsy fartsy, was the death of nuance. because like you say, that's what's gone in the world. Nobody wants nuance anymore. They want to be tribal. If your team left or your team right, your team blue, your team red, everybody just wants to be a fight, and it's about just winning those little battles within that. But now nobody's moving forward, and because of that, it blocks out. We can't have these conversations because we may not figure this all out in a couple hours, just me and you talking, but at least we made a couple steps to it. And if everybody could, but what they're doing is trying to use that tribalism to stop the conversation from starting. Because what I hear growing up in Slave Lake, I get to watch all my friends in Facebook that just go completely onto the other side of just attacking everyone that wants to say they're anything for the environment. They attack. They go off. They're not being rational because they think that's the only way they can be heard. Right.
Right.
Like, they've tried voting. They've never voted anything but conservative in their life, and it's made no change because Alberta doesn't have a big enough population to be heard. And it's been shown to us time and time again that Ottawa doesn't really care about what happens to Alberta. Right. So now these people are so frustrated they don't know what to say, but now they're hurting their own cause by arguing it in a poor way. You don't just go, oh, you're a liberal snowflake. That doesn't get us anywhere. No, let's discuss. Let's say, hey, I really respect that you're trying to change the environment. I think that's a noble goal, but I think it can be done better this way, right? Let's not attack.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like if you want to have that discussion, if me and you try and bring up any way that it could be maybe done differently and more effective, we're labeled as a racist Trump supporter, oil and gas baron, and then on the other side, if anybody brings up anything from the environment, those people on the far right or whatever, all these liberal snowflakes are pussies, they want to take our guys. It's like, no, that's not the decision. That's what they're trying to get us to do. They want us to
Mm-hmm.
divide into these two groups because now you're not making sound arguments. If you just make the group argument, it really gets us anywhere. It's just for show, right? Like if you just say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they're liberals, they hate us, and oh, they're right wings, they're racist, we hate them, they hate us. Now it's divided. Now we're not getting it. Now we can't even have these conversations, and everything stays on the status quo, where all these institutionalized institutions get to stay up on their pedestals making all this money because everyone's fighting over the things, when all it would take was us coming together. Like you say, bring everyone. We're all on the same team here. We're all trying. At least we can have a conversation and see if we can come to a more middle ground. It seems like everybody's so far on the left and right in these towers. 95% of people are all in the middle, but are quiet and just kind of going through life trying to do the best they can. But these people that are over on the far poles are just chucking shit over, trying to get to them, trying to chuck
Mm-hmm.
these shit bombs over to the other side, trying to hit their castle. But really, it's just they can't throw that far, and it's just landing on the middle people, right, and pissing everybody off. They don't want to hear this Fox News or CNN lie to them from both sides because they're getting shit bombed from both sides. They're both lying. They're both being dishonest. They're both trying to just frame everything in the perfect way for their goals. But really, it's all these people in the middle. But there's no representation for the middle. Like I said, there's no way we can just vote on these certain subjects, right? Maybe you are completely left. You want everything to be progressive in every single way, but you are a gun activist, and you really support the Second Amendment. But that's your one thing that keeps you on the other side. It's so ridiculous that we don't have a more middle ground group that can have a balance and show these people that it's not all
Mm-hmm.
about you don't have to choose left or right or get into this tribe form, because that's what stops us from having long form conversation, getting to the next layer of these problems. We can't even get past stage one. We're stuck in first gear all the time because it always devolves into just name calling. And if you say this, if you have anything but this, you can only, what the media is trying to tell everyone is you can only have one of two opinions, and that's the only opinion you can have. If not, uh you don't have any group support, right? It's they try and make it as scary as you can to be in the middle and be rational. And that's what I
Right.
think is changing with this long form conversation, because when you're trying, nobody is that far right or left if you really get down to it. At the basic point, that's just a tribe that people associate with them and try and really lean into that. At the end of the day, most people are in the middle, and if you have a long form conversation, you can find these areas. I could sit down with the most environmental the most what's the leader of the Green Party? Elizabeth May. I feel like
Elizabeth
I could
May.
sit down with Elizabeth May and have a conversation. If we had a 5-minute conversation, we had to try and you have 10 minutes to figure out this problem that we just spent the last hour 15 chatting about. If we had to do that in 10 minutes, it probably wouldn't get anywhere. It would probably devolve into name calling. You're an idiot, right? Because you only have 10 minutes. But I bet you if me and Elizabeth May sat down for 3 hours, we might not agree on everything, but we'd probably get farther. And if we tried to keep it civil and have a discussion, we'd probably get pretty far. At the end of the day, we probably still wouldn't agree, but we get way
Mm-hmm.
further than we would, right? But they don't want to give anybody that time, and they're trying to, on the news, they want everything to be a 5-minute soundbite. They want everything cut to commercial, keep everything locked in. They don't want anybody to start having these long form conversations. But now you see why the media is dying, and someone like Joe Rogan signs a hundreds of $1 million deal with Spotify because
Yeah.
that's what people want to listen to. They want nuance. They want not super, pretty centrist, trying to do their best, sending the message of love and unity to people. That's what people are craving for because they can't get it anywhere else. But that's where I see the system starting to change, and more people are going over to that. The only thing that kept the news media alive was, first it was Trump. Everyone, when he got elected, everyone started watching the news, and everyone was locked onto their CNN or their Fox News, whichever one, and that kind of kept them afloat. And then even that was starting to die off, and then the COVID thing comes up, and that keeps them in the news. But eventually, when things get back to normal, people aren't going to have all that goodwill that all these companies throw away with clickbaity titles and misleading news and cutting up clips. All that goodwill is gone, and now if you don't have something to hang over our heads that's everybody needs to go onto the news for, or people get fed up enough to find third party news, on YouTube or something else, it's going to crumble eventually. Right. And I see that with all
Right.
these institutions, that if they don't start making changes, they're going to crumble. I see that with universities. If they just try to still stay on the path they've been on and not make a change, they're not going to be here in a couple of years. You know what I mean? And I
Right.
think it's a matter of how quickly are these companies now going to pivot and understand this and get on board with where things are going to go. I think
Right.
that's going to be one of the hugest changes we see.
And I think now more than ever, you also have to really be fluid as a company. Like you look at how many
Mm-hmm.
companies in the last 5, 10 years have just died out just because they haven't, evolved with the times. Like Blockbuster, for example,
Yeah.
J.C. Penney, Forever 21, these sort of things. Like they used to be these massive dominant chains, and now like we've seen the whole shift to e-commerce, and they just, they
Mm-hmm.
didn't evolve with that, and now they're getting left in the dust. And I think the curve now is so intense with how quickly things evolve and trends change, that you have to be, not only as a business but as, like you said, as an institution,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you have to be on the ball with those kind of things, and understand where the trend's going, and make
Mm-hmm.
position yourself for success in terms of, okay, well, what's going on right now, what's going to be going on in 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and how can we tap into that potential.
Yeah. For sure. And I think also that goes for people too. Things are changed so quickly, but we're still stuck in the mindset of if you change your mind, you're a hypocrite. But with how things are changing and how much it's it's crazy to me that we even have the word hypocrite anymore, because with everybody all trying to spin the world, news media are trying to spin the world in their way, right? Social media, every other person in your world is trying to spin their world to make it show a certain way that isn't true. You're being lied to all the time. Information you're getting is lied to all the time. You could watch a documentary and be full blown environmentalist. We got to shut down all, and then you could watch an anti documentary and you could be fully flipped the other way. There's so much people trying to influence. You're being so heavily influenced just in your day-to-day life that it's an amazing it'd be amazing if you didn't change your opinion all the time, right? We got to stop holding people to what, oh well, you said this 6 months ago. Yeah, but I have more information now and I've changed my position. We have to have that freedom to be fluid, like these companies are required of.
100%. Yeah.
But it seems like it's a natural progression that humans need to do that too, but we don't let anybody. If you
Yeah.
if you had a mindset in 2015 that doesn't match what we are in 2020, you're done. We can't have you. You showed your cards at that point, and that's what you're stuck to. And now, if you're not on board with what's progressive and what's copacetic with the culture now, you're done. But how is that even a reasonable ask? Like it's
Yeah.
it's it's setting everyone up for failure. If you want to make that the standard of what everyone has to achieve to, you're setting people up to fail. We have to start saying, you know what, it's a great thing to change your mind if you found new information and you want to come back to the table and try and bring people over, and that the converted are the best people to show the light. If you thought one way and have now changed, you understand both positions, and you're in if you feel strongly about the new position, you are then in a really good place to bring people over. Show, hey, I used to think your way. I used to have some hate in my heart for certain groups, but I've seen the light. I've gotten over to this point, and now I can show other people where the path that I walked and kind of bring them along with me. But we don't let people do that. And now we get stuck in these ruts, and now everyone's so scared to admit, even if they do, oh, maybe I wasn't too right with that. They'd rather just, stay with the team, not break off, and just, maybe I don't think that anyway, but all my friends still think that, so I'm just going to stay here. Right. And now we don't move forward. I think
Yeah.
that freedom of people to be able to change their opinions is a really key component to where we need to go as a society as a whole in my head.
Yeah, I think it's really admirable actually if you're looking at the friendship between Ellen DeGeneres and George Bush.
Yeah.
You know, completely, obviously, completely different political views, but we've kind of got wrapped up so much lately in
Hmm.
identifying our own identity with our political views that it's like
Yeah.
you're completely labeled with it, and it's such a part of who you are. It completely defines you, and I feel like that's such a small part of who someone is. You know, you
Hmm.
can have someone who will be your best friend in the world, but when you meet them, you find out that they've got different political views on a certain topic that's a little bit, controversial, and automatically you scuff them off, and you're just, redneck or liberal snowflake, like you're saying, right?
Hmm.
But it's and it never seemed to be like that years ago. And I don't know if I was just young and naive at that point,
Hmm.
or I don't know if it as we have seen a shift change where all of a sudden now we're completely labeled with like where we stand politically on issues.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's important that we understand that it's such a small part of our identity and who we are, and there's so much more to a person than what their political views are, and we should be able to agree to disagree. That's such a
Hmm.
lost art now. I think
Yeah.
we've kind of gotten past that a lot, and it's sad to see that, like, some
Hmm.
friendships or family relationships end badly because simply because of political views. You should be able to have different outlooks on issues,
Hmm.
and understand that, okay, we have different approaches and different
Hmm.
understandings, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I don't think we even understand the entire impact of what you said with Ellen DeGeneres and George Bush. Um, Solutions going forward, how rarely is it ever completely one way or the other? It's usually somewhere in the middle, right? The right way forward.
Of course, yeah.
But now, if we make it so that someone like Ellen and someone like George Bush can't even have a conversation because, oh, you guys aren't on teams, you can't talk, you can't be friends, and like I said, kind of
Mhm.
going back to the Elizabeth May thing, that's if we're honest with ourselves, that's usually where the real change is going to come from, is getting the super far to this side and super far to this side, bringing them together, and that's where we're going to see real change. Then you have the full wide range of mindset. You get into an echo chamber of just people that think like you. Your possible outputs of what can come from that conversation, because you all have the same inputs, is very limited. You need
Mhm.
to cross pollinate. You need the left and the right. You need the loud and the quiet. You need all these things to come together. That's where we make real change. But it seems like as of late, they're trying everything they can do, and I think it's because they're scared. I think they're scared of change, and they see the writing on the wall that people are starting to realize this and wake up a little bit. And I think that's
Right.
why they're trying to lock people away, because they don't want us coming together and rising up and showing the real power of the people of what we could be. I think they're scared of
Mhm.
it, and that's why they're trying to make it so tribal. And I think it's also a lot in human nature. We grew up in tribes. That's what we are. That's our lizard brain at the end of the day, is what we're trying to pull us to. But they know that, and that's what they're trying to. It's easy. It's hard to incentivize people away from their natural instincts. But when you can find something like that, that's why they say sex sells. It might not be right at the end of the day, but they know what deep down lizard brain, what's going to get you to buy a product, right? That we've known that for hundreds of years, right? That's marketing
Yeah.
101. It's the same
Yeah.
thing with political goals of what they want. It's a lot easier to lean into that tribalism that's baked into us and force people to do that than it is to um, bring people together with love and community and understanding and compassion. That's something we have to work towards. But how often in life is the easy thing, going towards tribalism? That's always easy. The way forward is never the easy way. It's always what takes it's a little painful, and you have to, put a little effort towards it. That's always the best course of action. That's just, that's grade one. That's the golden rule. That's easy, but like you say, it's so easy to forget about it. And I really liked what you said. I don't know if you're just, when you said, I don't know if I was just naive and wasn't seeing it, or if it's ramping up, because I've had the same conversation. I don't know if this is something that's just the subject of the times. I think a big piece of it is social media. I think that was a huge flip that we still, I think we're going to look back in 20 years and look back on social media and go, holy shit, how did we not realize what an impact that had on us? Uh,
Mhm.
it sculpts the minds of everybody growing up. It shows everybody, it gives everyone this loud voice to yell from the rooftops their most what will win them the most brownie points societally, right? That's
Mhm.
what they're being programmed to from a young age, is whatever's going to get me the most social brownie points. That's what I need to express to the world in the most well cropped, photoshopped way possible. And it's just pulling people to the extremes, right? That's never the extreme. You're never perfectly happy, right? Nobody shows the medium or the down days even to balance it out, right? Nobody has it. We're just pushed to the extremes all the time. We don't ever have, right? It's the death of nuance. You know,
Mhm.
everything, it from start to finish, from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go into bed, everybody's yelling you to be extreme, go to this side and this side. You know, everyone's yelling to go run away from the middle, but that's what we need to get back to. That's where the real success comes from. That's where the real compassionate and artful moments come from, is that middle ground, that working together and bringing it forward. It's always a collective.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think coming back to what you're saying, like sometimes it's not the easy way forward that we should take. It sometimes
Mhm.
what's right takes a little bit of work. And like one quote that always like stuck with me, and it's cheesy as hell, but it's from my man Dumbledore,
There
and
you
it's like,
go.
yeah, and his quote was like, sometimes what's easy and what's right isn't the same thing, right? So
Mhm.
like you said, it takes some work to put in and get to where we should be, but yeah, it's not the easy way forward for sure. So
Exactly. And maybe I subconsciously pulled it because if you listen to the last podcast I just did with Courtney, when she had me on the podcast, I admitted to reading the entire Harry Potter series probably about 30 times. So I'm sure subconsciously Dumbledore is in there, maybe speaking that out through my mouth. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I see that as a huge decision. And lots of these things, like what we discussed, seem so obvious to me, like just in day to day, it frustrates me that people don't see this. But
Hmm.
what I found, I was getting so frustrated and so I wish people could see this. I wish people could see this. But until somebody opens your eyes to this and tries to, show this to you, how are you going to realize it? And then I thought, well, why not? Why can't you be that person to have these conversations, start to, maybe, if 100 people listen to this podcast, maybe only one of them that'll sink in and maybe, oh, maybe that is the way forward. Maybe I should give people a little more room, try and, instead of finding the first thing that they can say that's going to let me do the easy thing, which is to knock them into that tribe. Okay. Oh, he said that. I know who that is. That's a snowflake. I don't have to worry about it. That's easy. Okay, maybe I heard that, but there's probably something I can. Let's go to the next. Let's give them another chance. Let's find something we can connect with, right? That person that you thought might have been a liberal snowflake, really you connect on MMA, and they turn out to be a really big MMA head, and you can connect on that one little thing that gets you in the door, and now you're talking, and now you can have that conversation. Now we can move forward, right? Or some other thing. There's always these other levels. Most people are super multifaceted, but as soon as you hear one thing, you just lock them away in that tribe, and now all the other things that you connect on are null and void. But if you allow yourself to just keep attempting, keep trying to find that opening to the point you get to, now we can really get somewhere and we can start moving towards. I just think there's so many forces at work that are working against that, and I think not enough working towards bringing people together, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think some of it comes back onto responsibility as a human being in these issues too. Is that
Mhm.
if you don't understand it fully, or if you and of course you'll never understand issues completely
Mhm.
fully, but if you have a lack of knowledge, like don't put your opinion out there, right? Like if it's an
Exactly. Learn.
uneducated opinion,
Listen.
learn, yeah, understand, try and make sense of what's going on. And
Mhm.
there's a I saw this graph, and it was from a psychology professor, and it was kind of like amount on the x-axis was amount that you've studied something, and the y-axis was how much you think you understand it.
Yeah.
And it was basically like a linear uptrend, just a regular upward sloping. Okay, you're
Right.
starting to get it, you're starting to get it. You think you understand it, and then all of a sudden you're starting to get into like the deeper issues with it, the underlying
Yeah.
thing, and then it completely does like a U.
Yeah.
It's like the more
Yeah.
you study it, the less you really understand it,
Uh-huh.
until you kind of get to that point later on where
Yeah.
you're really starting to get into the nitty gritty details of it. So,
Mhm.
like and we're all I think a lot of people, maybe not everyone, but I know, like, and I've caught myself time and time again at this, is you want to be heard, you want your opinion heard, and that's kind of regardless of if it's an educated opinion with some fact and some understanding behind it,
Mhm.
or if it could be just from, oh, I saw this one thing on Facebook or something, right?
Mhm.
So, and I think we should do a better job at, yeah, if you only read one Facebook article shared by Fox News, probably don't share your opinion. Just sit and
Mhm.
listen, right? Or if you saw, like it, have some responsibility behind the words you say, because by you putting it out there, even if you kind of sit back and say like, oh, well, I heard this, it still kind of puts that notion out there, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and I think a big piece of that too, Kyle, is you got to give people that kind of what we talked to earlier, is giving people that second chance of, if they did read that one news article from Fox News and put it out there,
Hmm.
maybe you shouldn't condemn them forever now, because you have to give them that room to learn. And now maybe they read a couple, if they do that work and read that knowledge and educate themselves and see, oh, maybe I wasn't completely right, or maybe I still believe that, but it's not as cut and dry as I thought it was. It's more nuanced, which it always is, right? You got to give them that room to grow, right? And not just jump down people's throats. I think if we start doing that and start to show people that you can start to change, it's gonna give people that green light to investigate and show, right? Like, what's the point right now? Where's the incentive for people to learn and grow if it doesn't matter because you've already been labeled? You know what I mean? We're
Hmm.
not
Exactly.
incentivizing
Yeah.
people. We're not incentivizing people to do the work. We're showing people, right? It's cut and easy. It's cut and dry. Just here's all the websites that will give the party line of your opinion. Just share these ones, and you don't have to do any work. Just go about your day, and that's easy. We're not incentivizing any any homework, any real work for the people. And I think that's a real disservice to what we could be doing going forward. Not to change gears on this, but just something that I wanted to kind of ask you about, because I'm curious. I'm gonna have to tell a little bit of a story, and sorry, I apologize to the listeners if they've already heard it. So when I well, it started with me being in grade 10. My sister went off to university. She went to Lister. I got
Yeah.
to see the change that it made in her. She was shy growing up, kind of outgrew the shyness maybe in high school, but was already labeled with that shy person. So everyone kind of just assumed she was shy and didn't give her that real shot. So when she got to Lister, it was a fresh start. Nobody really knew who she was, so she got to open her wings up a little bit. Did 2 years in Lister, and then I was going to go there, and I remember telling her, like, I don't know, I'm pretty happy right now. I think I know who I am and all this. I was just cocky little 18-year-old. And I said, don't be upset if I don't enjoy Lister as much as you do, because she really was all in on Lister, loved every second of it. I was
Yeah.
soon to follow. I just didn't know it at this point. And then I walked in, and I didn't realize how much of myself I was, keeping under wraps because of where I grew up in Slave Lake, all the other parts of my personality. You know me pretty well. I'm kind of a weird dude. And I, kind of kept that under wraps of that stuff, right? Like reading Harry Potter. I remember the time, and again, I apologize, I already told this, but the first time I got outed as reading Harry Potter in the dressing room in hockey, and I was just, raked over the coals for it in a fun way. Well, I'd like to think on it as fun now, but and stuff like that. So I always was kind of keeping things hidden, and I found Lister was such a eye-opening experience that let me kind of open up, and we had a really good conversation about just the changes that it allowed. And I was thinking, I want to, every time I have somebody on this podcast, I almost want to just, and maybe some people won't have that experience, so I just want to ask, what did Lister mean to you? Did you have any experience like that? Did it change who you were at all?
Um, I mean, definitely. Like I think it'd be pretty naive to say it didn't change who you are
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I think not even Lister in general, but I think just going away for university and kind
Right,
of
and maybe
being
that's
an
what it
adult
is.
for the
Yeah.
first time is changes you a lot.
Right.
And I think the best part and the absolutely thing that I loved about Lister and I miss all the time is just the community that it built. And like,
Right.
you get home from class, you throw the book bag down and you're like, oh, buddy's upstairs, one floor above. Okay.
Yeah.
Rip up there, play some Mario Kart, have a couple beers, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like now it's like if you want to hang out with a buddy, one, you might not even be in the same city, so you got to plan
Mm-hmm.
months in ahead. Like, oh yeah, I'll make it out there. Two, it's like
Exactly.
it's you got grown up stuff going on now, so it's harder to make plans and stuff and all
Yeah.
these kind of things. But yeah, back in the day, it was like Friday 8 o'clock. All right, 8:05, you're all in one room crushing beers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And
And
that
that and
was
that sorry, go ahead.
and that was I thought the biggest beauty of it was that community. But yeah, did it change you as a person? For sure, it did. But it'd be interesting to kind of contrast that with someone who grew up or who went to like a different residence.
Right. Yeah, because
Um,
I don't know how much of that is just the fact that you are out on your own and stuff. But I think a big part of that, I think those two go together so much. I think the fact that being out on your own like we were, that was our first time being adults. We're 18
mm,
coming into the world, of leaving our parents' house, but then you leave one family and you get another one, because that's what Lister
definitely.
was. It was a big family, like a huge family. And to different levels, right? You have your immediate family, your brothers and sisters that are your floor, and maybe a couple floors around, and your tower to a lesser extent is almost your extended family, and then Lister as a whole is still, you have your rivalries in between, but it's still family at the end of the day, and you all have that shared connection, and it's just such a powerful place that we were just talking about how it's very sad, kind of the way that it's being commercialized a little bit, and they it does if they can make a little bit more money on it, they don't care what piece of that amazing place it wrecks, right? And it may not be to the extent of maybe myself or Courtney and what it did for us, but you take that away where say even if it's only 1 in 10 students has that really drastic life-changing experience of what it is, and you take that away for people and now it's no longer there, you've done more disservice to your again, it comes back to your goals, right? If your university's goal is to make better people at the end of the day, which what a university should be doing, right? Is sort of to educate and make good, upstanding citizens that are good people,
Hmm.
understanding who they are. But what it seems like is they're more concerned over the last couple of years of making money, and they have done a disservice by wrecking some of these institutions like a Lister, where you give people the freedom to be whoever they want to be for good, bad, or ugly, right? That we've seen that go the other way too, where you see some real shitheads that get a little high on their Lister position of what it is, and they go kind of the wrong way. I definitely saw it. I
Yeah.
definitely was a prime case of it. I'm sure myself, of getting too high on my britches of who I was within that, and probably wasn't very good to people. And I look back on that, and maybe uh, I'm not too happy, and it haunts me a little bit. I probably could have been a better person at a lot of the time, and just now I do a lot more personal. I try to grow as a person a lot more nowadays, but when you look back at 18, you're not thinking of that. You're just kind of going one day to the next and riding the highs of, oh, this is an awesome environment, right? Um,
Yeah.
but I just think it's for good, bad, or ugly what it can do with people. Even the parts that I hated myself, and maybe I wasn't very good to people, or I was too cocky about some of the things, which definitely I could be tendered against me. I think I learned so much from that that even the negatives of it are great, because now you can grow from that, and it shows it's like this giant sandbox of life that you can play. You get I guess you could do 1 to 4 years of this perfectly set up. You have a family environment, right? It doesn't matter if you came from a rough upbringing, you're going into it, it's going to be a family. You get 1 to 4 years of this sandbox of humanity. You get to learn how to interact with people. You get to learn how to be funny. You get to learn who you are within this really loving, caring place with all these people looking out for you. I think that is invaluable. I don't think you can find that anywhere else in life or in any other university. And like I said, you'd probably have to look at maybe some other residences to get a good sense of what you're comparing it to. But I just think they're really undervaluing what it is. I think myself personally, and this is kind of where I wanted to get to with you, is for me, I found the business school, like university and business and stuff, it was all right. I don't think it was worth, like, if I was paying the money for it, I would cut out half the classes that they gave. Like, lots of the HR classes were complete bullshit, like not really teaching you anything, all fluff. There's a couple Excel classes that were good, couple econ classes that were really good. The accounting and finance were good, but past that, all the electives and stuff were pretty, you know, for what you should be paying aren't really there. But what made up for that was my Lister experience, running that dodgeball league. I learned so much more about business and how to interact with people and having employees and hiring and firing in that role than I did in my entire business degree, right? And I think it's
Hmm.
just so cool to watch that open up. And I just wanted to maybe get your take, because what did you think about the engineering as a degree and how they do it at U of A? Because from an outsider perspective, there were times where I would see you or one of my other engineer friends, and we'd see each other at the mar, or the where we're getting food, and you look like a zombie. Your eyes would look like you're sunken into your head, and it's whatever project that week. Oh, I have to do this CAD project. I have to build this whole thing, and I have this. I have 6 midterms, and I'm just looking at you like, what are they doing to these poor kids? And it was thinking, like, this is so much different. There was obviously tough times. University wasn't a cakewalk for business either. There's some tough times, but it seemed like a whole another step up for engineering. Do you think that was a good thing? Do you think there's better ways it could have gone about it? Do you think there's added benefits that come with it that I think from an outside perspective I wouldn't see?
So overall, I think the engineering school is taught pretty well, but I think they've lacked keeping up with the times. So,
Oh,
for example, like Excel is the bread and butter of pretty much most engineering jobs, I would think now.
mhm.
Or if it's not Excel, it's some sort of
Program.
data-driven
Yeah, based on
program,
Excel. The basis of Excel will get you into most
right?
projects.
But
Yeah.
we don't have a class on Excel in engineering, like, which just boggles my mind. Like, why do we not have a class that goes into Excel, studies maybe a little bit of like VBA coding,
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, how to present data, like these kind of like skills that you would, I think, really be valuable that they
For
just
sure.
haven't implemented into engineering. Like, we've definitely had some classes that use Excel, but they don't teach Excel. They
Mm-hmm.
You use Excel to help support the class that you're doing, right?
Right.
So, and we have quite a bit of like outdated things. So, like, for example, one of my buddies, his dad is a chemical engineer and went to Waterloo, and we'd be talking to him about projects we're doing, and literally, like, we have these diagrams. They're called, I remember this, they're called McCabe-Thiele diagrams. So,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, I barely remember what they were used for, but I think it was like if you have like a separator in a chemical process,
Mm-hmm.
um, it'll tell you kind of how many stages you need. I don't know. I was never very good at them. uh, Basically, you hand draw them, and you're using like a ruler to draw out these stages, and there's so much error involved, and it's like, what? Why are we still like dicking around with this? I'm never ever gonna touch this, even if I'm like, I get you need the fundamentals and to understand
Mm-hmm.
where things come from, but we consistently use them throughout the whole semester. Like, why not? Okay, one assignment, and then after that, it's all computer simulation because that's what's gonna happen in the real life.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Get the basics and
Uh,
then jump into the real
yeah,
world.
yeah, exactly. They're still teaching like the really pure maths, like the
Mm-hmm.
differential equations and stuff, which I personally never used, and I could have gone without them. But I think you kind of need those still in there
Mm-hmm.
because again, it is the fundamentals for, especially if you go the more academia route, like into
Mm-hmm.
kind of the research side of things, whether that's on an industrial scale or like on a university scale. Um, but yeah, I think that they've just. I think if you looked at what our courses are, I bet they haven't changed in 20 years.
Yeah.
And I think
Uh,
that's kind of like the downfall of engineering right now.
mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it'd be where, and I think an issue with universities is people are there. It's such a high turnover rate because people are only there 4 or 5, maybe 6.
Mm-hmm.
I think engineering actually has a limit on. I think if you hit year 7, they kick you out or something. There's
Yeah.
a called the Steve Drake rule, I think, if I
Mm-hmm.
remember correctly. So if you're only there for 6 years, you're not really, if if something's like crappy, there's not a lot of reason for you to change it because you're going to be
Yeah.
out of, by the time it gets implemented, you're going to be gone,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe it comes down to, yeah, just a high turnover rate, or
Mm-hmm.
just a disconnect between the association governing what
Mm-hmm.
needs to be taught versus what's actually like what the
Mm-hmm.
students actually need. But
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think go ahead.
no, sorry, go ahead.
So a podcast that I listen to, it's called The Portal. It's got Eric Weinstein. He's a mathematician, and he went into physics at I think Harvard, and was met with some resistance, and they were kind of going against. So he switched into math and kind of has done physics from the math side and came up with a whole separate unified theory of physics, but
Right.
through math. It's untested, and he just released it with this COVID stuff. He was kind of always he worked on it for like 30 years. He was privately funded by Peter Thiel, that billionaire, and has worked on. So he's put out his whole like opposition to string theory, like this whole new. Anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so one of his theories, and I think he's right on the money with it, is that a big issue with universities these days is it used to be like the chancellor and the dean of the universities, that the highest positions were all held by people in their 50s and 60s, right? And then when they got to that point, they moved on or they did something else. But now we have these people holding on to these positions, like you say, and it's allowing that outdatedness. It's just they don't want to turn that over. They want to just keep the people in that are making the money. Just if you can keep showing that you're making money and that your profit levels are going up, there's no term limit on these things. They almost need one, right, to keep a younger, fresher
Hmm.
uh, face. And I think this goes for everything. I think in the world we need that, right? Our the U.S. presidential race shouldn't be between two 80-year-olds. Like that just blows my mind. That especially with the rate of change, if you look at the amount of rate of change from 2000 to 2020 compared to 1960 to 2000, it's vastly different. So now you have someone that was already 60 when they and unprepared to take on the last 20 years, and now they're here. They've just kind of held on to the handles for the last 20 years as all this innovation is whipped by and probably scared them for the most part, right? If you're 80, you're probably not very good with a computer. And now we ask them to run this digital world and make decisions on what we're doing. And same thing with the university, you're deciding on the best way forward for these classes and what they need, but you're 20 years out of touch with what we actually need. So we're always on this lag, and it's almost like a built-in lag to the system that is just for no other reason than profit maximization, right? But I think that's where we get into these issues. We have to reprioritize away from profit in certain areas, right? Environment, schools, politics. We have to go away from just profit maximization and go into what we really need and start to look at and have people in there that actually have the understanding of a kind of how the world works in the last couple of years of how fast it's changed, right? With social media, you need to be able to navigate that, or at the very least, this is what I don't get too, is you need somebody in a position as a mediator between that. If you are going to have an 80-year-old president, you need somebody younger to be able to, just as a communicator even, right? You find somebody that can speak to the people. Right now, what almost hurts me more than anything with the leadership in Canada and the US is that there's no good speeches to be given. When the world needs leadership, they need somebody to guide them. In Canada, we have Trudeau just reading off his paper, stumbling through it, can barely, just no affectation to the way he's speaking, doesn't grab you at all. It's pretty much just a canned response. And then you have Trump in the States, where it's coming from the heart, but it's not leadership. It's not a message of unity and bringing people together. It's full tribalism, right? There's nobody to step up, right? Like when they were saying Obama was going to speak the other day, it was almost like, you can talk to what Obama did and didn't do with his term and the economy and what happened and drone bombings, all that besides. You can't take away what a great orator and leader he is, right? He has that undefinable aspect to him, that he knows how to calm and bring people together. That's what's missing. And I think if you are going to have leaders like that, you almost have to have a role of somebody to do that. If we're going to tell our leaders that's not what we value anymore, we don't have that. Now we get into these positions where we need leadership. We need somebody to bring everyone together. One of the biggest pieces, and I think I've already mentioned this on the podcast, but one of the biggest aspects or examples of this was when the states realized that they didn't have enough masks or PPE for their healthcare system with this COVID pandemic. They realize this and they go, shit, well, what do we do? Everyone's buying up all these masks. We don't have enough for our healthcare system. And they go, well, we have two routes forward. We can either fess up with the public, say, hey, we fucked up. We should have planned for this. We didn't see it coming. We should have. That's on us. But our healthcare workers need us right now. I know everyone's going out and buying masks. If you can find it in your hearts to keep a couple you need and bring the rest to the hospital, that's where we need it the most. We're going to be social distancing or isolating at this point. This was still when everyone was on their house. We shouldn't need the masks at this point. We'll ramp up more mass production. We'll have it for the time when we are starting to bring people out of the houses. We'll have them ready for then. But if you could please give them to them, this is what we need as a leadership, right? That would be what a good leader would do. But instead, they decided to, okay, so we need masks, or our healthcare system need masks. Let's tell the public that they're ineffective. They don't work. So then Fauci came out and told everybody in March that masks don't work. Don't use them because that was them. We know better than you. We're just going to lie to you, but for a good reason, because we need these masks for healthcare workers. But now that's caused so much loss of trust and so much faith in not facing people, that now it's caused all this disinformation. Now people are fighting against it. They're saying now it's created that tribalism, where if they were just honest the whole time and had good leadership that could come out, and especially in the States, like the Patriot, I know we're Canadian, so it's hard to speak about this, an American thing like this, but the patriotism that they have there is spectacular, right? You watch, you start a USA chat anywhere in the States, they're going for it. They are patriotic to the nth degree. You got to lean into that. You got to know that if you reach out and try to speak to their patriotic side and ask them to do it for the country, I guarantee people would have. Maybe not everybody would have. There's always going to be those shitheads in the mix, but I think you could have got it to a place where it would actually make a helpful difference and people would do it without spreading disinformation. Now we have to go forward, and now there's all this ammo for people. Well, why are you listening to that guy? He told us masks don't work. Now they're telling me they lied to us. Why are we listening to him? Right? We could have avoided all these other issues, and just by being honest. But nobody everybody is so sure that they know better for what people need than and to accomplish that, they need to lie to them. If they give everyone that respect of, I can be honest with you and let you make your own decision and treat us like adults, like they should be, like they used to, we'd be in a much better off. So I think this trying to baby everyone and decide what's best for them and not letting anybody make their own decisions is hurting us in the long run. And it's taking away all that goodwill that we built up. Right? It used to be pretty standard of the leadership. They may not be perfect, but they're trying their best, and they want what's best for the people as a whole. They're not trying to do what's worst for Canada or America. But now there's huge majorities of people that honestly believe that they're trying to not only not do what's best for the country, but actively hurt their values, right? And that's a huge swing. And I think that's what's caused so much distrust and so much negativity in the world, is just that right there. And I think if we start trying to ask for honesty and ask for truth from people and treat us like real people, that'll start bringing that back over to that to the right side. We've kind of fallen lately into that dark side, but I think long form conversation, podcast, that's what's going to bring this forward, of bringing people into that state of mind where they can have that compassion and understanding and honesty with people, so that going forward we can actually make some change, because nothing impedes change than lying to people and sowing disinformation. That just doesn't help us move forward, right? It just throws up so much more roadblocks for us to get through. It's like running a race and throwing your own roadblocks up ahead of you, just jump over, right? And then grab another and throwing it out ahead of you, jumping over. It's completely bananas to me that we do this. Like
Yeah, definitely.
if we could just understand this, change our incentive structure a little bit and get everyone moving forward. Now we're all rowing the boat the same way. We're not got one guy rowing at the side, we're just spinning in circles. Now we're all going the same way, because right now it just seems like everybody's trying to paddle their boat the same boat in different directions, and we're just everyone's getting wet, everyone's upset, everyone's yelling at each other. That's what it is right now. We just need to step back. I don't know what it's going to take or what watershed moment it's going to take for people to come to terms with that, but I see that as being the only way forward, and I think it's coming. I think it's
Definitely.
God. I don't see any other way forward other than that.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. Why don't we take a piss break?
Fucking right. Let's take a piss and we'll get back to her. And we back. Yeah, no, for sure. So I don't want to keep you here all day. I know it's a little bit of time difference. What time is it there now?
It's 9 o'clock, but I
Oh,
just got
nice.
off nights, so like I slept till 2 this afternoon. So
Oh, nice, nice.
yeah.
So what was some of the bigger culture shocks getting started? We kind of were telling the story, you got through your training there, and then we kind of went off onto some other tangents there. So once you got, and when's the last time you seen your family and Laura? Was that did you get to go home after that training, and or was it straight to Saudi after that?
Yeah, so luckily my manager was pretty nice and said, yeah, after training, go home for a couple weeks because it ended right before Christmas, so timing was
Right.
pretty immaculate. But I was lucky. Like a lot of people, the training went right through Christmas and
Hmm.
they were just shit out of luck, right? So even one girl, like her training finished on January 2nd, so like right through Christmas, right through New Year's, and then
Yeah.
yeah, so um, but yeah, so luckily enough, I got to go home for Christmas. Like flights were absurd expensive because like I booked pretty last minute because I didn't know if I was gonna get to go home or not and things. So that
Right.
was definitely a dagger, but I figured it's worth it
Yeah, you
to
got to
see
do
the
it. I
fam. So
bet you're glad you did it now.
oh, 100%, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then I came back January 3rd, so I've been here ever since. So
Wow.
almost 5 months now, just over 5 months.
Holy
So
shit.
it's been a while. So actually, I think in a week I'll be 5 months sober,
Nice,
which
nice.
is completely on accident, not by choice.
Yeah, I know. Not much
Yeah,
partying to get to there, hey?
yeah. So there's a little island. Just there's literally like a little bridge to it called Bahrain. It's actually a separate
Oh
country.
yeah. Yeah, I know a couple people from Bahrain.
Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
you can go to Bahrain. It's about a 45-minute hour drive, depending how long the border takes. And
Mhm.
there's like bars and hotels and clubs and stuff
Right.
there that you can go to. So we went there one weekend when I first got here and had a couple and got into it there. But yeah, ever since then I've been dry as a nun. So
Yeah, no, I
um,
hear you. That's a lot of the same up this way, because just just not a lot of friends. Every once in a while, maybe a buddy will come up, but yeah, no, I'll go. Man, I haven't had a drink in 3 months. It's just
yeah, yeah,
funny. And then you go to a hockey game, you have 2 beers, and you're falling out of your seat. It's
yeah.
funny.
Especially the
Yeah.
dome foams will get you, man.
Oh, they'll get you. They'll get you. How do you
Yeah.
feel about sports looking like they're coming back?
I'm really excited. I think sports as much as you love or hate them, like they give people something to look forward to. They give people a purpose. They bring people together. Like I just
Mhm.
think there's nothing but positives that really come
Yeah.
out of sports, except for like I don't know, like riots and shit,
Yeah.
like things like
But
that. But that's such like
oh yeah.
beside the point, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, if they can bring it back, like I just think right now it's people need something to look forward to, right? Like travel plans are
Mhm.
canceled. People can't see their families. Like if they're far apart, people can't like, especially if they're elder, like if they're in a nursing home, like obviously they can't
Mhm.
go and visit them. It's just
Mhm.
people are losing jobs. People are, they can't go to school and
Yeah.
hang out with people, and they're missing that social aspect. So we need something to kind of get us,
Mhm.
keep the flame inside going, right? So I think
Yeah.
sports for, and it's definitely not for everyone. So I can't speak for everyone, but
Mhm.
for a good good amount of people, it's I think it'll kind of be that and give people something to
Mhm.
look forward to, right? Because I know for me, like growing up as a kid, like when the Flames made that run in '04, like that was a
Yeah.
big thing in our family. It was like game time 7 o'clock, all right, 6:30, we're all in front of the TV, grandma's coming over, like things like that. So I
Uh-huh.
think I think it's nothing but positive news, and it seems like they're really taking all the right precautions and
Yeah.
making sure that it's not rushed, and they're able to kind of, if things start to go astray, they're able to take
Mhm.
some steps back and reevaluate how they're pushing forward with it. So I think they're going about it the right way, and I think I'm all for it. I really think
Yeah.
it's a good idea.
Me too. I was actually shocked by how impactful the lack of sports would be on my life. I mean, it's hard to couch the full aspects of what it feels like because you're dealing with so many things at once with being isolated away from family and all that stuff, like you say. But I found
Mm-hmm.
even once we kind of got some stuff back and had a little bit more normalization, that lack of sports still stings. Like that was such a huge hit to my psyche. I found just like, and I didn't think I mean, obviously I love sports, but I didn't think it was that big a part of who I am to have that and have that to look forward to. Like you say, man, I was missing it so hard. And I'm so excited to see it come back. I was talking to Chase, and he was a little bit upset about the playoff format just because the Oilers
Yeah,
were in second place in the division and now they
yeah,
have to do a play in or whatever. But I didn't even think of that. I was just so happy to hear like any word of getting it back. Like, oh, and and that was the thing. I always thought it was so funny how Chase used to always bug me so much about watching League of Legends professional, right? Esports. And then all the sports get canceled and they were down for maybe a week and a half, had it back up and doing it from home. And I got like, not sports, but some sort of competitive exercise to put my eyes to and watch. And it was just so awesome to do it. And I was just thinking, oh, that's so funny that they were so cynical about it before. And then, like UFC, there's UFC tonight, and I was always a decently big UFC fan. I shouldn't say I'm really downplaying it. I love UFC; it's my favorite. But uh, when they started coming back, they were getting so much shit, and I didn't want it. You couldn't at that point you couldn't really support it or share anything that was in support of it because at that point when they first put their first show on, it was right in the middle of all this COVID stuff. But I was always
right.
thinking if they take all the precautions, everybody's signing off, they're doing everything right, testing everyone before and after and all that, I don't see the real risk of it. Everybody's doing it, they did everything right. I thought everyone, there was more things that could have been done that way, right? But brings so much, like you say, so much goodwill, so much positivity out into the world for people that enjoy it. Brings so much to people that you almost have to. It's almost your duty to take those risks and to watch someone like Dana White do that and realize that and just put it on. I'm sure a bunch of it was just for the money of it, but like
Mm-hmm.
that to me is was huge. We're getting to watch the first couple fight cards they put on, and they've all been absolute bangers. Like they haven't put on a bad card since. I don't know if it's just that the fighters know that everyone in the world watching because everyone's stuck at home or what, but for whatever reason it is, they've all been just incredible start to finish. And I just think that's such a huge piece for myself just to have something to look forward to know all week that there was fights coming up this Saturday. I've been just bouncing off the walls waiting for it. And then I don't even want to see what might look like leading up to the start of the NHL season's firing back up. I'm going to be inconsolably happy. Like I'm just gonna be bouncing off the walls, jumping off rooftops. I'm gonna be losing my mind
Mm-hmm.
because I am so excited for it now. Like
Yeah,
that lack of anything sports related, anything just that competitiveness. There's been no competition lately. There's been nothing to you can't go out and personally, I found I've been running a lot doing that. That's the only thing you can do, kind of compete against yourself. But you can't go play hockey, you can't watch hockey, you can't compete with anybody. They want everybody socially isolated. And I think everyone's so focused on which, and rightly so, on the social aspects of socially distancing from everybody and isolating yourself away for the effects on the human mind and the lack of interaction and what that does to people. But I think a piece that so many people are missing is also the competition between. I think that is just as equally big part of human beings, of evolutionarily what brought us to where we are today. That to think of, oh yeah, it's definitely hugely impactful to not have your community and your safety net around you to refill your batteries, right? That is a huge key piece. But I think if you're talking more than a couple months, that that competitive drive to pit yourself against somebody in one way or another is still there and being un it has no outlet. And I think that's what's building up to. And you see that with people all over, with all the craziness, when people, if with riots are one thing. I think there's a bunch of other reasons that even without this lockdown, it would still be very close to the same rate. But just everything's like how people are driving aggressively and cutting people off, and you see these people yelling in stores. I think a lot of that is undirected aggression that I think a lot of times sports and other sport equivalents feed that piece of who we are. And I think that is this it's going to show a big change once more regular sports. I mean, UFC is great, but it's a niche sport. Like it's
Definitely,
maybe a couple million people might watch it, but really compared to that, to like football, where it's tens of millions of people, I think we're going to see a big shift in some of those competitive things when they come back, to let people get it out in a healthy way, that's a little more healthy than maybe some of the other ways, because now you take that to the dark side of it. Now all that aggression's going other places too. There's what we see publicly, but behind closed doors there's a lot of that aggression being built up too, and that's what scares me. And I think that people aren't, when we talk about understanding the full scope of like an environmental decision of what it's going to be, and what you have to look at all these different factors. I think that's a big part of this too, is they think, oh, people want their sports, like we have bigger fish to fry. How are you thinking of sports right now? We have a pandemic going on, all these bigger issues. But when you look at all the positives that it'll bring with it, I think people aren't realizing the full impact of what it could be and what it's going to be once we get it back rolling. I think we're going to see a huge shift in just uh, mental health because of that one change. I think people aren't realizing the full impact of it.
yeah, no, I'm definitely on the same page. I'm all for it. Like it's something to look forward to in a time that a lot of that's kind of taken away from us, where we're kind of
Mm-hmm.
turning more from thrive to survive mode, right? So
Mm-hmm.
any kind of shift back to normal that we can get, I think, is a positive. I think it's really
Mm-hmm.
going to be interesting, actually, and I don't know, maybe you can shed some light on this with MMA, but the whole not having a crowd and how that's going to impact the the overall gameplay and the intensity. Like, do you find that when you're watching MMA fights, like the no crowd, like does it just suck the energy, or are the fighters still
It's
like on fire?
it's different. It's vastly different, but it's incredible to watch. And I think MMA has a couple different factors. I'll go over those, just of what makes it specifically weird to have no crowd compared to maybe some other sports. Because there's certain fighters, like there was a fight a couple weeks ago, it was Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson. Justin Gaethje is kind of a brawler, and he really feeds off the crowd, and that's got him in trouble sometimes, because he just likes to fight. He enjoys it so much. He's one of the weirdest or just most crazy guys in the UFC. A lot of guys pretend to be that and are actually scared, but that's probably 95% of the roster. They all talk tough, but if you really get down to them in a deep interview, they'll say, no, I'm scared of being out there. He's not. But he was getting in this firefight with him, but because there was no crowd, nothing to hype him up, the biggest impact is you have a corner that's talking to you while you're fighting. But usually in a fight, you can't hear too much because there's that crowd going on, but they can hear everything. And watching, you can hear everything. You can hear the corners yelling to them so clear as day while they're fighting. It's almost like a whole different sport to watch as a spectator. I really enjoy it. I know it sucks. And for me, I want the benefit of the UFC. I want them to have live gates because I want them to make money, and I want them to be successful because that's going to improve the product for
Yeah.
me. But selfishly, I love it. It's great to watch. You get to see all these different dynamics come up. You get to hear the fighters talk shit to each other, right? It adds this whole other layer where I don't know how that's going to come forward in something like hockey. I mean, what
Oh
gives
man,
me
I would pay a gross amount of money to watch pay-per-view hockey where all the
oh
players are mic'd up and you get to hear
yeah,
all the chirps like unfiltered, you know? So I
yeah,
don't know, maybe we'll get that a little bit
yeah.
with the no fans, but I with just how vile the language is, I don't think they do that.
Mhm. So this is actually curtails right into something that I kind of have envisioning coming forward with this kind of podcast and what I want to do. I was talking with Chase actually. I've always bugged Chase. I always see Joe Rogan does for MMA. He'll do a fight companion. So if he's not calling the card, he just has a bunch of buddies over. They watch the fights and do a live stream, and they just throw like the clock up so that you can time it so that you're watching the same thing as them, and you turn off the sound and watch like that. I would love to do something like that if it was just for the Oilers or for NHL or just for playoffs, where you grab me, you, and Chase. We all get in a room together. I mean, obviously, we're kind of in different parts of the world right now, but you
Yeah.
find a group of guys, you get them into a room, you throw it on there, and eventually, lots of times just to watch a different personality do it. I think every team, I mean, that's just for something that I would love to do. But I think right now you could find an X set of Oilers, an X set of Flames, or just personalities and give them a little bit more free reign because people are just doing it, and you just partner. You just do it as a sponsorship deal, right? It's going to drive a different audience that like this personality that brings it to the game. It's going to widen that. There's nothing forcing you to, right? You have the game already. You have the commentary set. There's nothing detracting from having a new subset of people that want to bring it in, right? Like I feel like the first one would be Biz Nasty. I think it's a crime to have him on their broadcast team and not have him just do his own little commentary with his buds and just let him let her rip where he doesn't have to be on national television and can say more shit and be who he is.
Yeah,
Imagine how many
yeah.
people watch it. It'd be gangbusters. It'd be
Hmm.
it seems so clear to me like that is the first one right there. The Coyotes could do it with him and it'd be vastly popular because I feel like people that even aren't even hockey fans would start, it would catch on to the point where people would be just watching it for the personalities, and then it grows the understanding of the sport because hockey is one of those things where it's, if you understand it to a certain level, you'll love it. It's almost impossible not to love it if you give it enough time to understand what the beauty of it. And I think that's where if you can find these other ways to pull people in, um, and get them in the door. But I just don't see why every team in the NHL shouldn't have it. And you could probably put it to other sports too. But might be a little tougher, but something like football where there's lots of downtime and the broadcasters are filling it. If you have a personality that you love, that could change the game of how you watch a football game, right? It's really bring you in and bring people along for the ride. I think that's what we're going to see in the next 5-10 years. I would be amazed if every team doesn't have their own, or at least somebody doesn't just take up the mantle and do it themselves. Maybe it's something with broadcast rights that it gets, but you're not showing the game. You're just talking about it, right? You're just having it on the
Hmm.
background. It doesn't even have to be on your screen, right? And they're just pulling it up. I think that is going to be a huge revolution in sports going forward. I think it's going to be kind of pick your poison, and then it could get to the point where you have multiple. Calgary Flames could have their regular broadcast team, and then there's 3 different groups that all do it, right? And you just pick your personality that you like to watch, right? And then all these beat reporters that have these personalities that are awesome on Twitter. Like I know there's a bunch of Oilers guys on Twitter that I follow that have a little bit of personality and like to crack jokes and or go along with the team. They could start doing it too, right? And you see these radio personalities and stuff that all they do is talk sports. They could have their own little show that they do on that. I think it's going to be a huge change going forward. I just think nobody's caught on to it yet. I'm just waiting. I'm hoping that it doesn't catch on until I got my shit together enough to start doing it myself. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's the whole
think.
thing right now. You got to catch the trend before it's a
Mm-hmm,
trend, right?
mm-hmm, yeah.
Right.
Which is why I almost thought to myself, maybe I shouldn't say this on this podcast, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. I don't think there'll be
Yeah.
enough people listen to this that I'll really be in any threat. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll
no,
see if
it's
you come
fine.
out swinging with 10K subscribers right off the bat. Then you'll be
Yeah,
eating your words.
yeah, bullshit. No, that's what I love about this so much is just like I don't care how many people listen. I mean, I care about it a lot and I want lots of people to, but it's not like I'm dependent on it for money or this has to be what it is for money. I just enjoy doing this. I just find every time I come in and sit down with someone and can talk for a couple hours like this, I feel so much better after, you almost ride that high for the rest of the day. And it's like, fuck, I could do this forever. I'd do this for free. If this never makes money, if I stay at 100 listeners for the next 10 years, that'd be fine. But it's just so enjoyable to do, right? Like, fuck,
For
that's
sure.
awesome. Which kind of leads me to my next question that I feel like I might start to ask everybody on the podcast, and maybe we'll wrap things up with this. But I know you have a job and you love what you do. So do I. I love what I do in the oil and gas industry, and it makes me a good living, and I really enjoy the job itself. But this is kind of something that I thought, if I knew I was gonna get, if I won the lottery, what would you do just for fun? And I want to start asking people that, because I thought mine was going to be streaming video games, but really what I wanted was just to talk to people and have this long form conversation, be able to get some of my ideas out. And I thought I'd do that for free. That's what I really enjoy. That's what I love doing. So if you could do something and get paid for it, what would it be on your side?
Oh man, I think for me, the people that I'm most like envious or jealous about are people that just are like, I don't know how they're doing it, and I'm trying to figure it out. And it's a long road, but people who are just paid to travel, like the kind of
Right.
like the Instagram travel people.
Yeah.
Like I don't even want it for like the clout or anything. Like I just think it's really cool that and a lot of people call them like digital nomads. Like
Right.
they
Yeah.
cruise around to these different hostels all around the
Hmm.
world, and they just somehow like make a decent living out of it. And
Yeah.
I
It's
think for me,
amazing.
like traveling right now is just like such a cool idea. Like if you can submerge yourself into a new culture and
Hmm.
learn new perspectives and meet new people, it's a shock, and it's not always like sunny days, right? You definitely have some days that are challenging
Yeah.
and whatnot. But I think it's such a for me it was such a rewarding thing getting out of my own backyard and getting to see the world, and
Hmm.
it's something that it was partly why I took this job because I kind of wanted to see the world, which I have a little bit. I never probably
Hmm.
would have gone to the Middle East if
Yeah.
it weren't for this
Exactly.
job, right? So it's a couple of countries off the checklist, but
Hmm.
I think yeah, for me, if I could do one thing, the other thing that like I'm really it's gonna sound super kind of like broy and douchey, but like I'd love to just like run a gym.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just think there's so much positive, like there's such a force right now behind like changing people's lifestyles and starting to eat
Hmm.
healthier and be happy. And I wouldn't want to run like a broy gym or anything. I'd want to run like like I don't know, like in dodgeball when they got the average Joe's gym, right? People
Yeah.
just like
Exactly.
just better in themselves. Like I think the
Hmm.
gym just gives such a good vibe, and for like a lot of people, it's kind of that that 1 hour a day that they can shut off and just focus on improving themselves. And um, yeah, I think that would be something I'd also kind of
Yeah.
like to see is get into somehow that I can, become a little bit better in that aspect of my life
Hmm.
and kind of pass those skills and that knowledge on
Yeah.
to someone else. So if I could like own a gym or something, like I think that would be pretty cool. But I know like that's a hard industry to bust into, especially right now. Like they're literally all closed. So
Yeah, exactly. But just imagine you could combine the two and do run your gym at home, and then have someone that runs it really well, so that you can travel and travel
that's
to all
the
these
dream.
places, and spread your knowledge of your gym, and start little gyms all over the place, and you can travel and run your gym. It all
Yeah,
works out.
yeah.
But
So
mhm. Yeah, so that's I gotta say thank you again. I'm wanted to get more into maybe a little bit more of the culture shock and kind of all the different ways. Just ask you all the nitty gritty of what it's like living in Saudi Arabia. Maybe we'll leave that for another time. We didn't even need that as fodder here. We had so much to talk about. So yeah, maybe we'll have you on again and we'll go a little deeper on that kind of stuff, and maybe you'll be a little more expertise and know your way around there, and maybe being able to travel a little bit too at that point. Because that's the other side of this I see is a great time. If you are over there, you're so close to all these different countries to do try. I know COVID kind of throws a wrench into that and time off, but eventually things are going to get to a point where you will be, and then you'll be ahead of the game. You'll be a couple hours from all these wonderful places, right?
yeah, definitely.
Sounds good. Well, again, thank you so much, and we'll I'm sure have you on in the future.
Well, yeah. Thanks for having me so much, Nick. And you take care.
All right, thanks, Kyle.
See ya.
There you have it, episode 5 of the VonDubCast with Kyle Cugnet-Huber. Thanks again for sticking around, everybody, and it was a great pleasure to do this for you. If you have any feedback at all, just send that to VonDubCast@gmail.com. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.